Yeah, man.
Welcome back, everyone. Please take your seat so we can resume. I know we've all been enjoying the lively and informative discussions around the film industry and animation. So let's continue that with Miss Sophia Clark from the Jamaica Intellectual Property Office, here to speak a little bit about intellectual property and you. Sophia, please come up.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. And I'm way too short for this. Okay. Um. Thank you. Okay, I'll start again. Good afternoon, everyone. Okay. It's good to be here. I enjoyed the little drive down to Montego Bay this afternoon. It was a change. It was a different thing for me. So it's good to be here with you. I do have a short presentation that I would like to share with you, but it serves really just as a backdrop to prompt me. I'm really here just to share information about intellectual property. So do feel free to ask questions if you have any, or to add to the discussion. The objective is that you gain gain from the experience and take something away this afternoon. Okay, so don't leave me up here on my own, please. Talk to me. All right. Hello. Yeah, thank you. All right, so intellectual property and you. I'm talking to predominantly filmmakers and animators, am I right? Yeah, so the focus is, and writers, cool. I'm in good company then. So the focus is going to be on copyright, but I'm going to talk about intellectual property in general, just so you get a full picture of how it all sits together and how it impacts your work. Okay? So, firstly, let me just introduce the organization I work for, the Jamaica Intellectual Property Office, which is a government organization tasked with the proper administration of intellectual property laws is our official title. Basically, we are responsible for public education with regards to intellectual property. We advise the government on policy. We update the legislation with regards to intellectual property. And we develop the policy and assist in that. So that's basically what we do, and that's basically why I'm here today. I usually start these presentations by talking about, before I talk about what intellectual property is, I discuss why we talk about it at all. The main reason is, and I've borrowed this quote from Jampro themselves, explaining that creativity is one of our most distinct assets. Keep going, please. We as Jamaicans, we are exceptionally creative people. As some countries, you refer to their wealth being in oil or gas or diamonds or what have you. I often say that Jamaicans' wealth is our creativity. We have literally impacted the world with it, whether you talk about music or art or literature or film or fashion. We're up there, we're out there, and so it's important. Being that that is the case, it's important. It's important that we understand how to monetize that wealth, how to manage it properly, how to uniform it, so that it does end up being a driver for our economy, for our individual growth and wealth, and for the growth of our economy. And so that's why we talk about intellectual property at all. So first question is, what is intellectual property? Are we all familiar with the term at all? It's not a new thing I'm talking about, yeah? So intellectual property basically is the legal rights that are granted to the creators of works. The term usually uses exercise of the mind or creations of the mind. Basically anything that came out of your head, and I usually also say out of your heart, because most artists say that's where they create from. If it came out of you, then there is an area of intellectual property law that protects it and essentially empowers you to be able to exploit it and earn from it. So it's about owning the fruit of your mind and valuing the expression of your intellect. When we talk about intellectual property, there are basically 4 main areas that we deal with. There are lots of other areas in the field in totality. It will include things like confidential information and restraint of trade and all these kinds of things. But essentially, we mostly talk about patents, trademarks, design, and copyright. So I'm going to touch on all of them briefly. I'm going to focus, as I said, on copyright, but I will just briefly mention patents and trademarks and designs just so that we see how they all sit together. So patents, firstly, is an exclusive right granted by the government to an inventor of an invention. So if you create a new product or you come up with a brand new way of doing things, a new method of doing things, then the law grants you the right to exploit that product or that method or that system, whatever it is, for, at the moment under Jamaican law, it's 14 years. In the rest of the world, it's about 20 years. Our patent laws are a little antiquated at the moment. We're in the process of updating it. But for the moment, it's 14 years that you have basically to exploit that right. And anyone who wants to use it or license it or in any way impact it will have to come through you. And that's where that's where your power basically lies with regards to that invention. Next slide. I usually include this slide just to demonstrate really the power that you have. A patent is one of the most powerful pieces of intellectual property you can own. And this gentleman here, Mr. Kearns, was an American inventor who came up with the system for the intermittent windscreen wiper. Prior to that, the windscreen wiper was either on or it was off, and he came up with the system so that it would respond to the level of rainfall that there was at the time. Now, he tried initially to sell his idea to the big 3 car manufacturers of the time. They all turned him down, said they were not interested, but then of course proceeded to install the system in all of their new cars. Mr. Kearns took them all on by himself without any assistance from lawyers. He went to the court and he took on Ford and Chrysler, all of them, and he won. It was a classic David and Goliath type situation. They actually made a movie out of it. It was so interesting. The movie is called Flash of Genius, if anyone's interested in seeing it. But a flash of genius. And yeah, so it's okay, it's not in our field, but the story, the point of the slide is to demonstrate that it's important that you formalize your intellectual property ownership, because it was his patent registration was all that he had, and he went up against these huge corporations all by himself and he won. And that's the kind of power that you have when you formalize your intellectual property ownership. Okay, so the next area is trademarks. Trademarks is probably the area of intellectual property that on a day-to-day basis we interact with the most, because trademarks are everywhere, right? Trademark is a sign or a symbol which differentiates one undertaking from another, or one goods or service from another. It's what's on our clothes, it's what's on our food, and it helps us to know, to choose really, whether we want to eat tasty or KFC or juicy, or whether we want to wear Nike or Adidas. And when with us, as if you are setting up your own business, your trademark or your branding can become crucial to you, because if you build that up sufficiently and it gains sufficient distinctiveness and what have you, you can then put it on anything. You may be a filmmaker, but you can then put your brand, your name, your trademark on cups, caps, t-shirts, you name it. Merchandising is where persons really monetize their identity, their branding. So this is the part of the legislation where it defines what a trademark is. And because it is such a broad definition, around the world where trademark law is developing, hasn't quite reached here yet, but you will see that trademark, you can register colors, or sounds, or smells even, or shapes. And so you are able, if as a business person, to build relationship with your customer base, through all of the senses, really. You can use it so that, and monopolize a particular color or a particular scent or a particular shape, so that your customers identify with you. Go back. Yeah, is it the tires that smell of roses that got your attention? That's right, yeah. That's right, yeah. They've actually trademarked that scent for the, yeah. And those are difficult trademarks to get, because if you remember the slide that gives a definition, it says it must be able to be graphically represented. So you can't, it's not just a matter of saying, something that smells of roses. You have to put like the scientific representation of that scent and how it's made up and everything. But yeah, they do exist. They do have them. Okay, this slide I just included because I think it shows the power of branding. It was created really to demonstrate why we don't use the same word. Like if you register a trademark, it's very difficult to get another trademark in the same name as somebody that already has, especially if it's in the same field. However, it also demonstrates that the branding is so strong and so popular that even when the words aren't right, we still recognize them, right? Yep. Mm-hmm. Camel. Coca-Cola at the bottom, exactly. Yeah, so that's the whole purpose of the trademark. It bonds you to a particular undertaking or a particular product so much that we don't even need to read the packaging anymore. We recognize the colors, the swirls, the fonts, etc. Yeah, so that's how important it is for you to invest in your trademark if you have one, and you should have one if you're operating any type of business. Your trademark will bond you to your customers and grant you instant recognizability in the marketplace. Okay, I'm going to jump over to designs quickly before copyright. So a design protects the shape of a three-dimensional articles and can last up to 15 years. You register. A design registration costs about $1,500 and lasts for 5 years. You can renew it for up to 15 years. So design, next slide, protects three-dimensional shapes, which means it covers everything from furniture really to food. And basically the only requirement is that it's original and that you did it yourself, and then you can own that design. So this next slide just gives you an idea of the variety of items to which a design can apply. As I said, from food to furniture. And this picture here also demonstrates how intellectual property works together and interacts. If you see the J.Lo perfume, the J.Lo and the glow will attract trademark protection. The shape of the bottle will have been registered as a design to protect it. And so if there had been something, for example, if the perfume had been some brand new formulation that produces some new product, then they may even have been able to get a patent registration for that. Okay, so the different areas of intellectual property work together, and any product that you pick up will usually benefit from more than one form of protection. Next. Okay, so copyright. Copyright is an exclusive assignable right that protects original works of authorship, an author's specific expression in literary, artistic, or musical form. Copyright protection does not extend to an idea, method, device, or title. Now, this is a conversation I have frequently. Persons want to come and protect their idea, or they want the concept, and I have to explain that until your idea has taken some tangible form, there really isn't any protection for it. Okay? I hope I'm not upsetting anybody when I say that. Because I have this but whilst it's just your idea, there is no protection for it. Once you write it down, once you write the song, the poem, once you've written the script, once you film it, once it's in some tangible form, then it can attract, whether it be copyright or trademark or what have you. But up until that time, that we don't really have any protection. The right arises upon creation of the work. So as soon as you finish writing that script, it is covered by copyright, and the right lasts for 95 years after the death of the author. Okay, so the other important point I need to make is that once you formalize your ownership, the other thing you ought to make sure you do is include your copyright ownership as a property right in your will, to say who's going to get it. Because 95 years after you've passed, your children, friend, whoever, loved one you will it to, will still be able to collect royalty on that. Yeah? Next slide, please. This slide basically I think is important because everybody always talks about copyright as being the way that artists get paid, which it is, yes, but it is not the end of the whole thing. There's only really one aspect of the whole purpose of copyright. This Statute of Anne, as it's referred to, dates back to 1710, and it was the first piece of legislation in the UK with regard that covered copyright. And you can see that statement there is the very first opening statement in the Act, and it says it's in an Act for the encouragement of learning by vesting the copies of printed books in the authors or purchasers of those copies during the times therein mentioned. The purpose of copyright is to empower the creators so that they will continue to create. Okay, so yes, it is so that you can get paid. Yes, it is so that your work can benefit you financially. But the reason why we want it to benefit you financially is so that you will feel free to continue to create, because ultimately society benefits when you do. Yeah, without creativity, without that, then society would dry up and die, and we don't want that to happen. So we want to encourage the free movement, and even in the US Constitution has a very similar phrase, because they too recognize the importance of creativity and innovation to society. We want to encourage our creators, we want to encourage our innovators, and so we empower them with the right to control how their work is used so that they will continue to create. In Jamaican law, the rights are granted in Section 9 of the Copyright Act, and it is these rights listed here: the right to copy, to issue copies, to perform, to broadcast, to make adaptations of the work, or to authorize any communication of the work to the public. You as a copyright owner, these are your rights. If anybody wants to do any of these things, they need to come to you, basically. And if they do any of these things without coming to you, then you have grounds for a legal action against them. They are actually infringing your rights. Okay, next slide. This is just my simple way to disseminate that down, so that these are the rights. They're usually referred to as the copyright controls, because those are the things you alone have the right to do, or you, the copyright owner, alone has the right to do. And anyone else, as I said, if they want to, they need your permission. If they don't get it, then they're infringing, and you have a right to take action. Who's the author? Well, a piece of work can have different copyright owners, but essentially the starting point is the creator of the work is the first owner, unless there is an agreement to the contrary. So for literary and dramatic works, the person who wrote it is the author, and they're the first copyright owner. Where this becomes an issue is when you are contracted to do some work. If someone employs you to do some work, then it needs to be clarified between you who will own the intellectual property in the work. Okay, so in other jurisdictions, what happens is the legislation says that if I employ you to make a film, for example, I employ you to do this work, then I own the intellectual property right in all of the work that is produced because I've employed you to do it. However, we do not have that provision in Jamaican legislation. So if someone employs you to make a film for them, you are the copyright owner in that work, unless your contract specifically addresses that issue. All right, so that's something which often becomes a bone of contention because it's not discussed beforehand.
Can you say that one more time? What you just said,
No problem. If you create a piece of work, under Jamaican legislation, you are the first owner of the copyright in that work. The only way that is impacted is if there is some form of agreement to the contrary. Unlike other jurisdictions, the employer or the service person who requests it doesn't own the work unless it is specified in your contract of service or for service that the intellectual property transfers to the person who's purchasing the work. Yeah, so you want to make sure when you're being contracted to do work that the question of the ownership of the intellectual property is addressed up front, not afterwards, so that everybody is aware. Under the law, if nothing is said, then you retain ownership of the intellectual property. All right? Yes? I see some furrowed brows. Do I need to say it again?
well, no, I get it. It's just.
No, not you. I'm just saying everybody doesn't look like
when we spoke about it last year at the Jumper Open there as well, it's like in the case of a photographer. A photographer goes out, he takes pictures. He has the right then to sell those pictures, make frames and put them up in his in galleries and sell them to everybody, right? If he goes and takes pictures of his garden, his pictures and however, if I now decide to pay this photographer to take pictures in his garden or your wedding or what have you, no, I as the photographer still can take those photos, provided I have permission in terms of. All right, let me start over. Because people have their face images have their own copyright. But if the table setting, for example, I take a table setting at your wedding, I can sell that photo. Unless when you paid me, the contract I signed says that you, the bride, has all intellectual property. Because I was the one that pressed the camera to take the photo of your table setting, I own the copyright to then sell the photo wherever I want.
If I just use myself as an example, I write for the IT and Fancy Cat show, right? We did. So you mean that anything that I wrote,
Yes.
and that was produced, it's actually mine? Depends on the
Unless
contract.
your contract says otherwise. Yes.
Hey! Okay.
Mercy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Unless your contract says otherwise.
But
You,
then-
the
but then
creator of the work.
In a story like that, there's division of labor as well, because who is the one who shot with the camera, for example, that person has their
Yeah,
own
but then you're
copyright as well.
bringing in other.
Unless the contract states differently.
Yeah.
Right.
The default position.
Right.
Yes. So it's incumbent on you, the person. If I'm the person purchasing, then if I come and hire you then to take photographs of me, it's incumbent on me to ensure that the contract says I own the IP in those photographs. Because if it doesn't, then you will own them. The default. Yes. The default position in Jamaica is that the author of the work owns the IP. The ones who played don't own it. The ones who played it don't own it. The person who wrote the composition, the person who built the rhythm owns the rhythm. The person who wrote the composition owns it. If all they did was play, If all they did was play, then they don't own anything.
No, if you played somebody who gave you notes, you mean?
Yeah, like you're.
But if you didn't give me notes and you said basic, give me some bass.
Yeah, then you.
I own it
compose.
as the bass.
You composed, yes. Yeah, if you originated it.
I'm just thinking because there's a famous case of Jamaicans where that has been totally turned around.
Yeah, if you.
Family Man Barrett and Company versus Bob
The
Marley.
position is, if I own a studio, let's say, and I hire you to come in and play for a particular recording. All right? So you play bass. So I've just come in and said to you, Bassy, this is your part. And you just play. I pay you however much per hour or for the session, and you go about your business, and end of story. Yeah? But let's say on the... No. No, I said this is your part. No. I said if I give you the music to play. Yes. I give you the music to play. I hired you to play a session. I gave you the music to play. Then you just played. You were hired, you're a session player, you played, and that's the end of it. But if I invite you to come to a session and I said, okay, we're going to create a rhythm, and you do your own creation, create your own rhythm for the bass, your own part for the bass, then you own that. You are essentially the composer.
So, yeah, just speaking to that, just spin off just a little bit. How does that apply to YouTube videos then? So it's I wrote something, I'm a comedian, I put something on YouTube, right? I didn't actually copyright it or nothing, it was just something that I produced. But that it has monetary value because on YouTube, if I get a certain amount of hits, that's money for me. Now somebody watches my video and just redoes my skit and puts it on their platform and uses that. Is there any protection for the
Well,
artist?
they
in that
have
way?
essentially, we go back to the basics, the controls. Firstly, though, let me just backtrack a little bit. When you said you didn't copyright it or anything, remember what I said, your copyright is automatic.
So
So
that
when
applies
you wrote
for
that
YouTube
script, that
as well.
applies to anything that you create.
In Jamaica because it's online, so it's YouTube.
It would still apply. It's still covered by copyright.
So somebody,
When you wrote it, when you wrote it, the moment you finished it, it is covered by copyright. It is protected by copyright then. You are advised to sort of put a statement on it to put others on notice of the fact that you claim copyright in the work, but it is automatically covered by copyright when you create it.
So if I see somebody with the same concept, right? Like how?
Oh, so this is where it gets tricky, because you can't protect.
Buying lawyers.
Okay, you've produced a piece of work and you've uploaded it to YouTube, okay? If somebody copies that piece of work, then they've infringed your copyright. But if somebody looks at your piece of work and is inspired to do something similar, you can't protect the concept, you can't protect the idea. What you can protect is your specific expression of the work. Yeah.
Right. Is the same thing you just wanted to say. I wanted to attach to the gentleman about the music. In terms of if you're invited to come and play music for somebody, to create something out of your head, and you create a rhythm, yes, you created it, but you still don't have the copyright until you've actually written it down on a sheet of music paper, and that is now the copyright, because the copyright is the recording of the idea. Having the idea yourself, she having the idea to do this skit on YouTube, she have it in her head, but then she tells somebody, and then somebody else goes ahead and writes it and produce it. They have the copyright because they have written it. Do you agree or disagree?
Absolutely.
She had a question.
Because it goes back to what I said initially, that until it takes some tangible form, there's no protection. But until it's written down or recorded or has taken some form, then that's when copyright attaches.
Okay, just to address the question on the digital aspect. So,
Okay.
when it comes to, I don't know, probably you can add to it,
Sure,
but
good.
as it relates to digital things, right? The law has not caught up as yet with the advance in technology that we've had in terms of digital works. So there's a lot of discussion online about it. There are lots of issues because there are instances where people's works have been taken and there has been no recourse. A good example is a case in the UK where a gentleman, he went on Instagram, he took the photos of women with tattoos, beautiful tattoos, where they had photos of their tattoos. He took the work, blew up the work, he added his signature to the work, and then he sold these pictures for thousands of pounds. He did an exhibition on it in the UK, and it caused an uproar because, for example, I have a tattoo when you take up my picture of my Instagram, and he put it, and he said that there's some law. I didn't come prepared to discuss it, but the fact that he once you make a change, he was suggesting that he has now made a change to the work. He's altered the work by adding his signature, and so it now becomes his property in that sense. And the woman, there was a big uproar. Some people took him to court, but not everyone. They didn't get any. They didn't get any recourse to the issue. So the digital space is difficult. There's also the fact, and people bear this in mind. I know I encourage us to share online. However, you see that terms of service, read it. Because when you put your work on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, these companies, you have in essence allowed them the right to use your work in perpetuity without giving you any credit, it still remains your work. It's still yours, but you have signed over. When I sat and read it out to write an article, I was like, this is crazy. You've given them the right to use your work in adverts, so you don't know that your face is being used to advertise something somewhere else on Facebook. No, hold on. There's a catch. I'm not saying you shouldn't, because with everything there, good and bad, you can't say you're not going to drive in a car because you can get in an accident. What we're suggesting is just to be wise, but read the terms of service and bear in mind also that whatever you put online doesn't really disappear. So as she said, make sure you put things in place that if you have a piece of work that you really love, for example, I work in social media, as I said, there are things I don't put online. I don't care, I'm not putting it online. Or make sure you protect it. You have the copyright in place, you have the patent in place, because once it goes out, if someone uses it at this point, when you are here and the person in Woy in the UK takes your idea, you may not have the means or the time or the finances to engage this person legally to battle for your work. So as professionals, as creatives here, and you made a great point, the aspect of your concept, you can't copyright the concept, but if someone copies your work, just bear in mind that when you share, there is a risk. So probably and even when you put it on the thing that the copyright becomes mine, this does nothing for Facebook. It's still, you've signed it, you click, I agree, you agree, you've engaged them in this way. So just to address that. And the law is still developing, so read on it. The social media is growing and changing. Keep reading, keep searching, and looking at the stuff to find out more as it evolves.
Okay. All right. Firstly, just to make a couple of points before we move on, I just wanted to say, I don't think it's not fair to say there's no recourse at all. There is some legislation in different jurisdictions that permit you. For example, there is the Millennium Digital Act from the US, which permits you to, if someone copies your work or has it posted somewhere else, takes it and puts it somewhere else, that you have the right to go and get it taken down. Yeah, you contact the service provider and show that it's yours and get them to take it down. And remember that copyright still persists. A lot of people get terrified about the internet and about technology because yes, the law is always catching up. However, as long ago as
as long ago as 2001, when Napster first came. I don't know if any of you remember Napster, but copyright law shut Napster down. Yeah, well, everybody was saying, oh, the internet is the wild, wild west and we can't control and nothing can happen. It was copyright law that was applied, plain and simple. There was no new precedent created or anything. He just applied copyright law to the principle and it shut them down. I think the big hindrance really when it comes to the digital world is the fact that litigation is time consuming and expensive, and so it's difficult for persons. Most ordinary people would be like, oh, I can't be asked, because you have to go and engage a lawyer and write to them and all of this to-ing and fro-ing that can occur as a consequence. But there is legislation in place that can assist and that can apply and can rescue you. And also you have to be proactive and take responsibility. It's not everywhere willy-nilly you should post your stuff. There are platforms that you your terms are more reasonable, where you can come to an agreement as to what can and will not happen with your work. So be what's the word I'm trying to think of? Discerning about where you put your work, because the internet is forever. If you post it on Facebook, there's no pulling it back. I always laugh every time something happens and I'm reading about so-and-so who said such and such on Twitter, and then it caused an uproar and now they've pulled it down. They've pulled it down, but here I am reading about it 2 weeks later. I never saw the initial one. Yeah, because it just can't, it doesn't go anywhere. Exactly. Yeah.
All right. Good evening. My question is pertaining to copyright being automatic, as you said, upon completion. I would like to know, though, in proving that the work is actually yours. So it's two questions. What is the best way to get that done? And secondly, when you make these works, for example, I also do music production and so on. Right. But in the current state, you don't actually need to actually know how to read notes.
Right.
To produce music. With like Fruity Loops, you can just punch it in and get what you want and rendering. Based on what was said before, I'm kind of confused as it pertains to that. So I develop a track on Fruity Loops and I render it. I have that track. I don't necessarily have the notes written out, but I have the rendered track. But is it still a copywritten product?
Yeah, you created that beat, right? But then it will be recorded. Even though it's not written down, it's recorded. So yes, copyright would still pertain. And then pertaining to the first question. Yes. What about the first? In terms of the registering, as I said, we don't grant copyright to your work because it is automatic, but I always advise persons what you do is you keep good records of what you do and when, with whom, where you share it, all of this. There is still in use is what is referred to as poor man's copyright. Have you ever heard that term? Poor man's copyright. And what that means is you put a copy of the work in an envelope, in a self-addressed envelope. You send it by registered mail. When it arrives back at your home, you keep it somewhere safe. And do not open the envelope, and you keep it somewhere safe. What you're doing is providing evidence in the event that your ownership is ever challenged, that you have that. We at JIPO, we offer a voluntary copyright registration service, which basically does the exact same thing. You come along, you complete a registration form giving details of the work, when it was made, where it was published, etc. You provide us with a digital copy of the work for our database, and we give you a certificate of ownership. But along with all of that, always have a copyright statement on your work coming to you. Yes, the cost is, it varies. It's roughly in the region of around $2,000, but it depends on what you're registering and how much. I have some registration forms which has a fee sheet attached, so you can see how much. And sorry, yeah. So what was I saying? Yes, always ensure you have your copyright statement, which is you will have seen it on other works. The C in the circle, copyright, the date, the name, and the term, and all rights reserved, so that you are putting anyone who views that piece of work on notice that you are claiming copyright in that work. And always keep a record, like I said, of what you created and when. The other thing persons do is to email the work to themselves, which is just a 21st century version of poor man's copyright, because then you will get the date, the stamp, the time, and everything to record your ownership. You need to keep good records. So for example, not just when you created it, but if say you go and share it with someone, if someone was involved in the collaboration, if you're invited to speak somewhere about it, anywhere where it would be exposed, you want to keep a record of that also, because if in the event that your ownership is challenged, one of the questions that you will need to answer is how the other person may have had access to your work to copy it. Yeah.
Hello. Oh, sorry about that. Good day. Well, I wanted to ask two things. The first one, as our bass musician wasn't in, what I'm getting is that this gentleman was asking, because of what was previously said about the music needed to be recorded or placed on a sheet. So you're saying that once it's actually performed and recorded, once the audio is recorded, that's equally as valid?
The term used is fixation. Once it's fixed in some tangible form, then it attracts protection. So if it's recorded, if it's written down, if it's on a disc, if it's on some form that is going to be readable afterwards.
Okay. And last, in regards to what the lady said before, with the tattoos that were online, just a bit of perspective I'd like. When a tattoo artist places a tattoo on your skin, who owns that copyright? The artist or the person who gets the tattoo?
What did they agree?
Well, let's say on a casual basis, somebody just walks into a tattoo artist without a contract. Isn't it the tattoo artist that then owns the work?
Well, the tattoo artist, being the artist, would own the copyright in the work. Yes. So, and I think the basis of I'm not familiar with the particular case that was being referred to, but I think the basis of the argument would be that his artwork that he is claiming copyright in would be the photograph, not the specific artwork, and that you gain copyright protection for a transformative work. So if you do something to it to make it different, or than what the original was, then you gain copyright in that work. And the photograph of the artwork of the tattoo would be a different piece of work to the tattoo itself on the skin.
Yes, excuse me.
Yes, sir.
Territorial copyright.
Mm-hmm.
For example, Jamaica is the birthplace of reggae, originated by Rastafari.
Yes.
Some people wanted to use our Blue Mountain coffee and call it something else.
Mm-hmm.
But we had fought and got the right for them not to dilute our Blue Mountain coffee because it's territorial right. Those reggae music have the right to go and sue governments or people who are using our reggae to make money. For example, a beer company is now using a Bunny Wailer as a rhythm to promote a beer.
Yeah, but then he would have had to get permission from Bunny Wailer or the producer of that particular track, because you can't
and the government,
you can't get copyright protection for reggae music as a whole.
No,
because that would be like the concept
like Blue
or
Mountain
the idea.
Coffee, like Blue Mountain Coffee.
Yeah.
We could.
You can't. No. reggae music would be, remember I said like you can't protect an idea or a concept, but you can protect the tangible form of expression of that concept. So reggae music would be the concept, and No Woman No Cry would be one expression of that concept. So if somebody wanted to use that song, they would need to contact the producer or the writer of that song to get permission to use that song. But for somebody to just make a reggae... Sorry? How would you... No, okay, what we have is, when it comes to Blue Mountain Coffee, what we have is a thing called geographical indications. A geographical indication is a type of trademark which protects a product which grows in a particular region and attracts a particular quality because it grows in that particular region. So because they have developed the idea and they've come with their own branding of it. But then how would art doesn't work like that. How are you going to prevent somebody who hears reggae and wants to create a reggae song? How are you going to prevent them from doing that? Yeah, but they're not stopping other persons from making reggaeton music, are they? They're not stopping them. You can create new versions, but you're not stopping other persons, because that's how music and art grows. It is reggae, though. It's a new type of reggae. It's not. Yeah. That's okay. But it's happening all over the world. Because there's dancehall in Japan and there's dancehall in Africa. Yeah, let me move on.
Ladies and gentlemen, just a sec. Please kindly allow those guys to continue your presentation. You can take questions as she is. Okay?
Thank you. Okay. Oh, right. Oh, no, is that where we got to? All right. So next slide then. Okay, so just as IP is a bundle of rights that apply to different things in different ways, copyright itself is a bundle of rights. So when we talk about copyright, it's the exclusive assignable right to copy, distribute, perform, broadcast, all of those things. We also talk about related rights. Related rights are things like performing of the work, what the producers do. So once you write the song and the composer composes the song, the producer now mix and blend and come up with a master of the song. And those rights are known as related rights to the copyright. Okay? Next slide. Okay, this is where the issue about original authorship, this is an issue that again comes up a lot, because original works of authorship in copyright is slightly different to original as we generally understand it. Original doesn't necessarily mean that it's never been seen before, but in copyright it means anything that has been independently conceived by the creator. So if I did it myself independently and I didn't see yours and copy it, then it's still original. Okay, this example that I used is so if Tia, having never heard of or read a book entitled Best Novel Ever written by Tamara, somehow manages to write a play which is very similar to it, Tia's book would qualify as original and would be protected by copyright law. Okay? They both would have an original work, even though they're very similar. If they can show, which is why I'm saying it's important that you record what you're doing, keep a track of what you're doing, keep a diary. Because if you can show that you did it independently, you've never seen the other work, you didn't copy the other work, then your work would still attract copyright protection. Yeah? Which I think is the argument about the photograph. Not quite, but anyway, let's move on. Okay, so this case, I use this case to kind of illuminate that fact, because this is the case in which that decision was first made, and it's actually about a telephone directory, which goes to show you the level of originality which is necessary for a work to qualify for copyright work. The argument here was whether the second company who came to create a telephone directory for the region, whether they had infringed the copyright of the original company by taking all the information. And the judge said, well, you can't have copyright in information if it's just purely information. What you have created is the layout, the way you've put the pages together, etc., but you can't protect the information. And so this is just to demonstrate to you the level of originality or creativity which is necessary to qualify for copyright protection. Basically, if you put it on the page, then it attracts copyright protection. Yeah? With regards to the duration, as I said, for literary, dramatic, musical and artistic works, it's 95 years after the death of the author. That's one of the longest periods anywhere in the world. Most generally speaking, it's about 70 years after the death of the author. I think it's in Mexico, it's 100 years, but Jamaica is 95 years now. Sound recording is 95 years after the year after which it was first made available, and similarly for broadcasts. Again, remember to put it in your will and remember to be clear about who gets what. Next slide, please. All right, when you talk about copyright, is divided again into economic and moral rights. The economic rights are those controls that we were talking about before to reproduce, distribute, broadcast, translate, adapt, communicate, etc. Those rights are what's known as the economic rights because they usually require a license for which you get paid for the permission. But moral rights are the area that I get most excited about because I think this is where the real power is. Your moral right in your work is your right to be identified as the author of the work, the right to object to someone misidentifying you for work that you didn't do, and the right to object to derogatory treatment. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not sure what's happened to that last bit, but what it's supposed to say is object to derogatory treatment of your work. Okay? So, as I said, remember that the main objective behind copyright is to empower the artists so that they would continue to create. Next slide, please. So this is just some examples of the kind of power that you have in your work. This case is about this sculpture. The sculpture is those, can you see the birds up in the sky there? It's a sculpture called Flight Stop, which was made by a gentleman called Michael Snow. And he sold that sculpture to the Toronto Eaton Shopping Centre in Canada. Sold it and everything was good. Around Christmas time, the shopping centre decided to decorate, which they all want to do. And part of the decoration was they tied red ribbons around the necks of the birds. They are geese, I believe, tied the ribbons around their necks. And Mr. Snow didn't really appreciate that. He felt that this was not in keeping with the tone of the sculpture and decided this was derogatory treatment of his work, and he asked them to remove it. They refused. He took them to court and won. And yeah, people always say to me they feel like this is a really trivial thing to be going to court over, and it may well be, but it does demonstrate to you the power that you really have in the work that you create, so that even after you've sold it, you really cannot be detached from your art that you've created. Your moral right pertains. And so even though he had sold it, he still had the right to go in and say, no, you can't do that with it. Yeah? A bit closer to home, this one, Mrs. Rainier Burke had written a song back in the 60s as social commentary about the behavior of the persons at the time. It was called Hooligans. The Wailers got permission to record her song. which they did. No money was involved. Mrs. Burke wasn't in the music industry really. She just was a writer, and they used her song. Many years later, she heard the song on the radio and was quite surprised and wondered what was happening with that, because this was like about 40 years later by this time. So when she investigated, she found out that the royalties from the song were actually being held because there was contention as to who had written the song. Mr. Marley and one or two other persons were between them arguing as to who had written the song. So she said, well, I wrote the song. So she went to court and got this declaration of the copyright in the lyrics of the song. In 2008, the declaration was made. This is like 40 odd years after the song was made, after the song had first been written, in fact. So 40 years worth of royalties, thank you very much. But again, it shows you the power that you have, and again, why you need to keep records of your work so that you can produce evidence of your having created it. Yes, but again, your moral rights in action. Last one. This one is in fact my favorite story about the power of your moral rights. You may know the artist Coolio, who wrote the soundtrack to the movie Dangerous Minds. Okay, and he wanted to sample Stevie Wonder's song Pastimes Paradise. I don't know it, I'm far too young to know that song. I think it was from the 60s sometime. And so he contacted Mr. Wonder for permission. And when he heard it, he was like, no, not with all this profanity, because you may know Coolio's a gangster type rapper, so you can just imagine how that did go. He said no, he doesn't want his music associated with that kind of profanity and what have you. And so Coolio rewrote the song, right? He rewrote it and cleaned it up. And the version that resulted was, number 85 on Billboard's Greatest Songs of All Time. It was number 1 biggest selling single in 1995. It was in 2008, it was ranked 38 in VH1's 100 Best Song. I mean, it won Grammys, it won MTV Awards, it won Billboard Awards. It was a huge hit. And I would always contend it would never have been that successful had Stevie Wonder not intervened in the way that he had. And again, it goes to the heart of the purpose of copyright law to me, because most artists that you'd speak to will say, yes, the money is important and what have you, but they want to influence society. They want to speak their heart. They want to direct the youth and all of this kind of thing. And this is what copyright empowers you to do, because you get to say, no, you can't use my work like that. No, you can't put it there. No, I'm not having this involved in it. And that's exactly what happened here to brilliant outcome. Fair use is an issue worth looking at briefly, because what it does is bring balance to the situation. Again, it goes on my theme about benefiting the artist, but also balancing the needs of society as well. So you do get to control what happens to your work, but also society might need to, critique your work or review your work and all of this. And so you get some limited rights to use the work without having to get permission, so long as what you're doing is fair. Next slide. So the principle allows for the reproduction of copyright work if you want to review it for news reporting, for teaching, for scholarly research, without having to obtain permission and without paying for a fee. But the key, again, is to be fair. Next slide. I've borrowed this graphic which kind of breaks it down for you. You can't just take the whole thing, say you're reviewing it and showing it. You have to use a small proportion. The new work that you then create is got to be a critique of the work or a satire of the work. You can't just be doing a new version of it and making money off the persons without assisting them. It shouldn't be a commercial endeavor, and benefit to the user has to be predominantly other than commercial, as we said. So in the region of research and education and review. So that's why, like, for example, on, say, Entertainment Tonight, they can show a clip of the movie because they're reviewing it. Or they would put a clip of the book that they're reviewing. They can tell you about what happened in it. This would be considered fair use. But taking the entire movie and streaming it from your website, no. With me?
Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to mention this because often infringement and plagiarism is used interchangeably, and they are not exactly the same thing. Plagiarism, as we know, is more an ethical construct, and it's literally taking somebody else's work and presenting it as your own, which usually happens, in university, college type settings, or as part of the presidential election, if your name is what have you. But infringement now is actually a legal violation. If you do any of the things that you are empowered to do in Section 9 of the Act without permission, then you are infringing and violating the legal rights and subject to legal action. Yeah? Okay, so royalties. Just mentioned this case because it established that once you sell your work, that's not the end of your rights to it. You may sell the work, but then whenever it's used, you are entitled to benefit from it. This story is about an artist who went to a cafe and heard musicians playing a piece of music he has sold. This is from way back in the 1800s, okay? And he took offense to this because no one had asked his permission to perform his work in public. So he chose not to pay for his meal. The cafe owner took him to court, and in the court the judge decided that yes, he did have a right to be remunerated for the use of his work, but he did still have to pay for his meal, was the compromise. So on the basis of that now, when you sell your movie, and when it's used, when somebody else buys it, or when it's put into another movie, whenever it's used, you have the right to receive remuneration for that, sir. Okay, well, I'm gonna touch that. Can I just put a pin in that for a second and come back with the next bit? Is that the same thing you were gonna say? Okay, let me come to that now. So this creates opportunity for the artist, but imagine how difficult it would be for you, the singular person, to be able to keep track of every use of your work, especially now that we are essentially in a global village and it can be done all over the world all the time. And on the other side, for the user who wants to use your work, to actually track you down in, Mandeville, wherever you are, when they are in Russia, to find out how to use your work. So to address this, we have what are known as collective management organizations, and they fill that gap and they protect the interests of all copyright owners, they facilitate collection of the works, they enable users to use authorized works by issuing them licenses, and they spread the wings of the artist and promote culture. So the collective management organizations here in Jamaica, there are 3 of them. JCAP and JAMS, you may have heard of. They collect for predominantly music and use of music in film and television, etc. Jam Copy collect for printed matter. So those of you who write, or if you even write music, whatever is used in print, Jam Copy would collect for those. So with regards to the cabaret artist in the hotel, what's supposed to happen is the hotel ought to have a license from JCAP to be able to have performances, and then from the license money that JCAP collect, they would then pay out to the owners of those songs that are used in the performance. That's how that works. Same with radio stations, TV programs, shops that have TVs in their shops, anywhere that uses music, DJs. So it could be the hotel. The hotel should have a license, or it may be the cabaret singer themselves may be required. It depends on what's arranged. Yes, when they come together, who's got a license? Who does it? But somebody would have a license, they would have a list of the songs that they're going to use. That way, when they collect, JCAP will know who to send the royalties to. Sure.
In Jamaica, radio stations are supposed to write every song. In Jamaica, radio stations are supposed to also write the name of every song used. It is something that has not been done. IRA FM popped that down early in the business. But by right, every station is supposed to write down a playlist, submit it, and pay accordingly. Never been done.
Well, some of them do. Yes, some of them do. We know, yeah.
Every day we have to submit.
Yeah, we know that there are some offenders who are not copyright compliant.
And also JCAP actually uses a digital platform to
Yes.
track that. So
Yeah.
yeah, they've been using it. They've been using sort of best practice international technology to track things that are broadcast. They don't need to. It's
They
all
don't need
all
to.
done digitally now. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I was. Thank you for that.
I know we kind of covered this already, but I just want to make sure that I understand. Bear with me. So I wrote a script, right? A comedy script. So it's mine because I wrote that. I hire somebody now to film it for me.
Yes.
He films it for me. I didn't have no contract with him. I was just my brethren come and film this for me. So because he films it, it's now his.
He owns the copyright.
He owns
in
the
that
film.
recording.
The recording.
You still own the copyright in
I
the
own
script?
the material, the script.
Yeah,
But
he owns the copyright in
So
that recording.
So what goes on YouTube is actually he would own it, more rights to it than I would.
You both would.
We both.
Remember I said to you there are overlapping rights that apply
Gotcha.
all the time. You both have rights in it. You
So
own the
I wouldn't be
rights.
able to stop him from uploading it on his channel because he filmed it without a contract then. Because
Without a contract.
Yeah,
no.
without a contract.
Because you guys need to come to an agreement about
so before you
those
get
sorts of things.
anything. So my second question then, do you have a standard form or something that we can look at to say, okay, well, this is what we need to have signed with my, because
The copyright manager at JIPO does not. However, the attorney, Sophia Clark, may be able to provide you with such a thing. I can provide you a standard, but I'm saying now Sophia Clark, I'm providing you a standard contract. All right. Okay, next slide. Okay, so managing your intellectual property rights are your responsibility. The best form of enforcement is what I'm calling when-forcement, because you need to be proactive, not reactive with regards to protecting your rights. Don't wait until somebody has done something, then you're running to try and scramble and bring the chickens back home. You do it up front. So when the work is created, register it, log it, diarize it, keep a record of everything. Secondly, when the work is digitized, use protective mechanisms. Now, I know a lot of people are going to look at me and say, oh, they can get around it and blah, blah, blah. Yes, some people are particularly savvy and can do that, but you still need to do your part and try your best to protect it as best as you can. So employ whatever mechanisms are available to you to protect it, to prevent persons from copying. And when commercializing your work, join a collective management organization so that your royalty will find its way back to you. And when collaborating with others, put agreements in black and white. And this is something that I've been beating like a hammer for some time, because I know that our creative persons are usually very informal about everything. It's always a brethren or something, or we in the studio, all our vibes, or something along them lines all the time. But then when it goes pear-shaped now, then there's nothing that anybody can do to help you. So I'm trying to change the culture, change the approach, change the mindset. We need to start thinking more business-like and doing everything more formal. So put it into an agreement. It doesn't have to be some big elaborate 100-page agreement. It can be something very simple. You just say, me and Binchi sit down today and we are do this, that and the other, and this is how it's all going to play out. Yeah? Yeah. Who tell you Binchi and I'm legal name? Okay, we discussed social media already, about the things that you need to be concerned about. So you need to be careful, be discerning, not only about where you're putting your things, but about what you make available and what you say. Defamation, major issue online, sir. Yeah, defamation is when you say something about somebody which is not true and has the effect of lowering their reputation in the minds of right-thinking people. It is in the Defamation Act. and can cost you a lot of money if you say the wrong thing about the wrong person. So be careful. It's too easy, too easy with all the Twittering and what's have you that goes on now, the Snapchatting and the Facebooking and what have you. It's too easy to say whatever. And the thing is, everybody sees everything now. So it's not like back in the day when I had a crush on Leroy from Fame and there was no possible way of me ever getting in touch with him. Today I can say something about him if he were still alive and he would see it and come to my house, which I'm not encouraging stalkering at all now, but it can happen. But well, if it's true, you can say it. Truth is the only defense really to it, or if you say it under privileged circumstances. Patents, those of you who are inventive, don't be too excited to share your stuff because that could invalidate the patent. Trademark infringement, don't be using other people's logos and what have you on your site without permission. Same with impersonation, and name squatting is less of an issue now because most persons work around it. You know, name squatting is when they used to use your name and then you had to buy it from them. That doesn't happen so much now, but it's still something to be mindful of. Enforcement, as I said, is an actionable offence. Section 31 is a civil offence. Section 46 is if they're selling or importing or anything, report it to. If someone is infringing, then you need to get an attorney or go to the mediation centre. If it's a criminal, report the piracy to the organised crime investigation. This is just an example of how, like I said, all the rights overlap and cover the same thing. I only use this because this is my dream car and I'm trying to put it out there in case any of you feel inspired to gift me on my birthday. And again. Yeah. So this is me. I'm finished now. Basically just encouraging you. We do have laws. It does seem scary out there, but there are laws to help you, but you need to be proactive, and it's important that you are, because our creativity is our wealth and we need to protect it. Yes. Yes? Yes.
Thank you. I'd like to use the name of a school in a film that I'm doing, right? I'm not going to be using it in any defamatory way. However, I was trying to find out what the legality is regarding it. I would be buying their original peripherals, like their jackets, all of the
In what sense are you using the name? You're naming a school in your play?
Okay, no. So basically, the film that I'm doing, it has a guy who has this dream of going to Harvard University. His parents got a scholarship for it, so they sent him like sweaters. Like I would be using their brochures and stuff, but I would be actually getting their original brochures, original sweaters, original logo and letterheads and stuff like that. I'd actually be creating it to some extent.
So in your film, basically, you're saying that somebody applied to go to Harvard?
That is correct, yes.
Yeah, you can do that.
I can do that? So
You're not using the... I mean, you're... What's going to happen? Is Harvard going to do something? Are they going to be...
Okay, so there's going to be a representative from the school that would be in the film to choose someone for a scholarship.
Okay, the safest thing to do, I would say, would be to get permission to make reference to them in the film. Definitely. Yeah.
What's that?
Or yeah, otherwise what you can do is make up another name and just describe it. Yeah, exactly. Just make up any name, a fictitious name.
What's that?
No, if you were...
I see what you did.
If it was just that you were saying, so-and-so is going to Harvard in September, that would be a problem, yeah?
Okay.
If you're going to involve them in your plot in some way, then you would need to get their permission. Or the safer thing to do, as has been suggested, just make up your own name, but just refer to it in that sense. So you refer to it as a top Ivy League school. Give it the... Do you understand me? Use the script to let it be clear that it's
Okay, 1 second. We're over time, so we'll take one more question.
With the question of defamation, is it a case that the burden of proof would then be on the person, on me? For example, if I was to make a film and in that film I was to refer to the story about David Cameron and the pig, would then I be responsible if David Cameron said, "Hey, I'm going to sue you"? Would then I have to prove that it actually happened? Yes.
Yes, you would have to be. Your defense would be that it is true. What
So-
I said is true, so you would have to prove that it is true.
What about situations where it's only two people here, and I make a claim? We're the only two people in the room. I make a claim. You say that it didn't happen. It's defamatory. How can I then prove that, and I'm the only witness?
Everything is usually weighed on evidence, whatever evidence you can bring to substantiate your case.
But wouldn't that then just be one word against the other?
But yes,
No, I was the only one who heard it, but then I repeated it to somebody that I heard you say this, but you are claiming that it didn't happen. But I'm the only one who can prove it.
yeah, but if you are going to be responsible for putting it out there, you need to prove that what you're saying
So-
is true.
If I'm gonna put it out there, I need to ensure that I have some recording of it.
You need some evidence that it's true because you are going to be responsible for whatever comes back as a consequence of saying it.
Okay, you realize I did not mention what happened with David Cameron and the pig.
Sorry?
You realize I did not say what happened with David Cameron and that pig.
That's it.
We're good?
Thank you, Sophia.
You're welcome. Oh, has he got it?
Oh, yeah, here you go.
Thank you.
Okay, very interesting topic that we could talk about all day. But Sophia is here, so please feel free to ask her. And as we work to formalize the creative industries, I just want to underscore the fact that when you're selling your work, it's important to retain the services of a lawyer, draft a contract. And when you're unsure about the use of work, to, again, consult a lawyer and understand what the implications are to protect yourself and to protect your work. Okay, so next up we have Corinne Thomas on production taxation and business planning for creatives. And we'll follow with Doyen on the state of the animation industry. So put your hands together for Corinne, please. Corinne Thomas.
Good afternoon, everyone. Renee and Tiffany, thank you for inviting me home. And thanks for the Republic of Montego Bay, as we say, right? And thanks for continuing to include Signosax in all your, activities. Yeah, we do appreciate it. To my audience, my name is Corinne Thomas, and I'm from the company Signals Tax Advisory Limited. We're located at 80 Lady Musgrave Road. What do we do? We're a boutique tax firm, yeah? And we offer tax services, income tax, GCT, customs, the whole gamut, yeah? And we have in-house specialists for every area. I know customs is dear to you guys because of the industry that you're in. So, you can call on us at any time if you believe that you need help, right? But I'm going to talk to you a little bit about accounting and taxation. I know that's boring most people. You hate math, right? How many people love accounts? Yeah? Right, so guess what happened now? If we talk and we understand taxation and accounting, I'll be saving you big bucks, yeah? And I may be keeping you out of jail, right? So, Right. So, to begin with, I believe it's very important that you document all your transactions. So, maybe you're saying, well, I'm a small businessman or it's a small company. I don't have an accountant, so and I don't have the resources to go and employ an accountant. What do I do? There's the great Excel, or you could just use your own box, you collect your receipts, right? You spend money, right? And you receive money, right? So it doesn't matter, is it in Jamaica, is it outside of Jamaica? Based on the laws of our country, you need to account for all income sources. And of course, again, you would, on the other side, account for all your expenses, right? So we want to ensure that you have all your opening balances, and you must ensure that you have a period, a beginning balance, ending balance for your accounting cycle. January to December, pick a month, doesn't matter, yeah? And it's critical because you need to prepare something called a financial statements, right? Not because you're not a large company, means that you're not required to prepare and maintain financial statements, and we'll talk about the importance of you doing that. Okay, so we want to ensure that our financial statements are as accurate as possible. And why is that? I'm sure as you grow, because your business, perhaps initially, it was just a hobby that became a dream, that became a business, right? And as your business grows, you'd like to do some kind of analysis, right? You want to determine your financial position. Where am I going? Where should I go? What should I spend more on, right? And that leads to your decision making before you get to the point of your sitting in front of your big board and have your fantastic exec committees, right? And again, the quite important objective is having the balance to maintain your statutory compliance. So, as I said before, accounting allows for assessing your whole operation. Is it efficient? Should this continue to be a hobby, or is it really a business? Are you making money from it? What should you do additionally to start making money? What should you be spending less on, right? You need to examine your past as well as your current performance, right? Because you need to do some kind of trend analysis here, right? So, and that gives you the opportunity to do periodic changes in your expenses, as I said before, your assets, your liabilities, right? And investment decisions, allocation of resources. You import, how much should you spend on your camera, right? You heard a lot today about IP, right? So royalties, intellectual properties. You learned about the custom duties, what you should not be paying on. You learned about the productive input relief. That's an incentive, right? So how does that affect accounting? It does. If you understand and you do the right thing, if you get all your approval for your incentives, if you have your IP, if you register your business, if you register anything that you think that's important or could add value to your business, of course that could affect your bottom line. And naturally, less taxation, right? So statutory compliance, wondering what that is all about. It's really maintaining and preparing financial statements, monthly returns such as GCT, and annual returns for, say, company's office, right? Because if you have a company, you'll be registered and you're required to file annual returns. Okay, so how do you do this? I mentioned before that Excel perhaps is a good idea, a box that you maintain all your receipts or all your receipts for expenditure, for income. However, everybody's techie these days, right? So from even your very basic phone, you could have QuickBooks, right? So you could tap into your business accounts at any time. You could take a photo of your receipts, right? Say if you're on QuickBooks, and that could formulate into a statement. So at the end of the day, at any time, a month, a week, you could produce what you call a financial statement. For you, it'd be like a management account, because perhaps you're not at a level for auditing. So, very important not to scare you, but just remember this. Leave here this evening remembering that the Commissioner General of Income Tax, they do have the right, or the designates, that's all the employees there, have the right to enter your premises. It doesn't have to be an office, it could be your house. They have the right to enter between 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And this is in the law, right? Section 91, subsection 2 of the Income Tax Act. And they could remove any document, any material that they believe is useful to them to alter or even to assess you, right? So, I spoke a little bit about accounting, but we have to create the balance with taxation. And what tax types applicable to you? Small business, medium, maybe company tax, maybe withholding tax, GCT, of course, you know about that, customs, payroll. Payroll is a crucial one. Sometimes we have a little business, right? And we have staff. Are they independent contractors? Are they employees that you should be withholding the regular statutory deductions from? The government can come in, right? The auditors can come in and decide that, listen, these employees are rightly employed by you. So ensure that your contracts are in place and the wording of your contracts, please note them. Maybe you need a lawyer to ensure that they are scripted correctly, yeah? Because you could be assessed for all the statutory deductions. And if the government of Jamaica believes that you willfully did this, they could go back as many years as possible, right? So, March 15 coming up, you need to file a tax return. You operate in a business? Yes, we have an obligation, we need to. So we need to pay attention to our income. What's your real source of income, right? Do you have any non-taxable income? Do you have any investment in CARICOM? Say, any instruments that you've invested in and you receive dividends from, say, St. Lucia? That could be considered, or that is non-taxable based on treaties, right? Zero, right? So that will form part of your income. However, it should not be taxed in Jamaica, right? I wouldn't say it's a tax haven. The thing is, Jamaica we have tax treaties with about 13 countries, and the rates will differ based on the source of income, whether it's management fee, and that's where tax planning comes in, and we'll talk about that briefly as we go along. Understanding your incentives. You learned about the PIR. What is it that you need to do? The person from the ministry is here, Ministry of Industry for you guys, right? So you need to ensure you go in and you apply for your productive input relief incentive. Culture, gender, and entertainment is here. So ensure that you maintain contact, you do the necessary applications, and they will, of course, send the information to customs. So when you're ready to do your import, right, then you won't have to be arguing with customs, saying that, no, I'm a musician, I'm entitled to get this free. Customs will already have this kind of information in their system, right? And in addition to that, apart from the import duty relief that you'll get, you could also apply to TAJ for your GCT deferral, right? So then again, that's another relief from taxation you would have at the ports, right? So what's your statutory income? It's the total of all your income sources, right? Income earned in Jamaica, in overseas. So just a reminder there. Right, but the Act also, so when you're audited, if ever, or you're trying to do a tax computation and you want to know, so what expenditure am I entitled to claim? It's all expenditure that has been incurred in earning the income. So if you repaired something at home, right, is that your office? If you use a room in your house for your office, then what you'd have to do is apportion that expenditure. So you would not be able to claim the full amount. So you can use your house or claim that your house is your place of business. However, 100% of all your expenses, when you go shopping for food, you're not allowed to claim all that expenses. So the law provides guidance on the type of expenses that we can claim. And okay, minimum business tax, you know all about that, right? So you have a small business, you're not making any money, right? So you're going to prepare a nil return in March 15. Everybody know about nil return. Government is saying, I want some money from you. So come the 15th of June and the 15th of September, please pay me 30,000. So for the entire year, you're paying 60,000. If at the end of the year, say March 15th, you're filing, you have a loss, you can't recover that 60,000. So government will at least receive from you 60,000 for the year. And there's a penalty for not doing that. Registered company, but as they grow, as they evolve, they need to be cognizant of, what's out there and what they need to do, because that's one of the biggest problem when you're audited and you feel lost and you run for your lawyer, which is not the very best person to get, because your lawyer does not understand taxation, right? And your accountant may not understand taxation, because if you've never studied tax law, then you kind of just, you need a tax specialist. Right? So, I'm from Signals Tax. We are tax specialists, but there are several other tax specialists out there that you can tap into. It depends on how much money you're earning, right? So, but for you at your level, it would not affect you. See the list of companies, individuals who operate, see, 3 million. So you're making 3 million? No, not yet. Get in there. Okay, so it would not apply to you yet, right? But yeah. Right. If your annual income, right, is for your business, annual revenue is 3 million or more, then you should file and pay this minimum business tax in June. I don't care if you make a profit, that's what the government is saying. No. March 15th, you still need to file a return. If not, you could be assessed, and you don't want them to assess you, because you know what happened? Maybe Renee is operating a business and she's efficient and she's profitable, and they're going to use Renee's standard to assess you. So that's why you want to comply, right? So don't allow them to come to you, you go to them. Capital allowances, you have assets, you have cameras, you perhaps have motor car that you use for your business, and perhaps you want to register the motor car for your business and not in your name. So it's not Corinne Thomas buying and using this motor car. What's the name of my business? XXXY, whatever. Then that's the name of the company. That's what you're going to register the car as. So it will become a company vehicle, and then you'll be able to claim back the expenses for that motor vehicle over time. Intellectual property, since 2014, you are now allowed to recover the cost of your IPs. And I guess you're not yet at this level, but as you grow, Jamaica Stock Exchange provides some incentive if you get listed, yeah? PIR, you learned a lot about that earlier, so I don't need to go into that. So If you're in the creative industries, the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment. Yeah. deferral, I spoke about that briefly, right? So if you apply to TAJ, you could benefit from this. Tax risk, the importance of complying with your tax laws. So if you don't comply, yes, sorry? What are you talking about, the assets?
Take clients out to lunch, like can I say this is our business cost, like how are we
how do
too
you recover
small
the
for
cost?
that? Yes, so like because I was just saving all my receipts and then there's a big pile of receipts now. I just need to know, is this pointless or is this something I'm supposed to be doing? Because as a business, aren't there benefits you can get as a business to use as tax relief? Could you, before you get her, could you give me a little detail on that, please?
Right, so for the asset itself, the cost of the asset, so the car you bought cost 6 million, for example, and yeah, let's talk about motor cars first. Government of Jamaica is saying that no, you can't recover the full 6 million, but 35,000 US dollars at the rate of exchange in the year in which you purchase a car, that's what you'll be able to recover, right? And they have depreciation rates that they use to recover, and it varies based on the type of assets, right? So it could be 12.5%, it could be 20%.
I bought the car for $6 million. This year on my taxes, I get 35,000 US off.
You won't get
Off the
35,000 off in 1 year. 35,000 times the rate of exchange in the year of purchase, right?
Okay.
And then 12.5% of that is what you'll claim. So over time, right? Say over, say, a 8-year period, you'll recover the
35,000 US.
Yeah, and that's an improvement. Compared to that, it was only 3,200 that they would give you for a motor car, unlike the other asset types where you could recover the full cost in, say, a 5-year period.
So then, then for, like, as I said, taking out my clients to lunch now, I have to have meetings and stuff. Is it that I can recover any of that, or is it that I'm just
like entertainment allowance?
Like I have to take the clients
If you have
out
client
to-
meetings, you could save those receipts, and those would be genuine expenditures that you can use to offset against your income. Why? Because we are saying if they are genuinely client meetings, those are expenses that you incurred in earning the income of your business.
And is it that it comes off the percentage thing that you're saying, or I took them
The
out,
full,
it was $5,000,
lunch cost
I get my
12,000.
$5,000.
Yeah, at the end of the year, you recover the full 12,000.
People save your receipts.
Right, and it extend to like petrol and yeah, a lot of other little things that you may not be aware of. So even when you travel overseas travel, sometimes, I mean, if it's for business purposes, your airfare can be deductible. So there are loads of expenses that you may be overlooking, or your accountant may be overlooking because of their
I thought it was depending on the level that you are in that would qualify you to.
There's no level. If you're a doctor and you work at UE, but you work at other medical centers, I mean, traveling to your job, all the expenses, maybe you buy needles, stuff that you use at these medical centers, you can claim 100% of that. A percentage of your utilities, a percentage of, as I say, if you do repairs to the house, a percentage, because we are going to say, okay, maybe only 20% of your home is really for business. So 20% of all the major expenses for, say, repairs and maintenance, yeah, could be deductible.
And I know that just in this case as well, if you, I forgot.
Should I be making before I want to go into registering my business? Going from freelance, right? And
You know that.
Well, once I've made so much money per month, okay, I know, all right, it's time to go and register. Or is...
That's all up to you, but freelancing doesn't mean you shouldn't file a return. You should still file a return. You're a sole trader, right?
No, yeah, like I haven't registered.
But it's up to you to decide how soon. Some persons register the business and nothing's happening, it's inactive. However, you have to remember that there are costs that you will suffer, right? Because you have to keep, maintaining, filing and paying at the company's office. You have to pay this 60,000 because you're a company, but...
So
yeah.
once I register, I know that expense now is 60,000 minimum that I would owe the government moving
You're
forward.
a company, yes. As a company.
As a company, not a sole proprietor.
Right, as a company, right.
Okay, so as a sole proprietor.
As an individual?
Yeah.
Same thing, yeah. No, if you're not making the 3 million, you don't pay it. But as a company, I don't care if you're making a profit.
Thank you
No,
very
I don't
much.
care if you're doing anything. Just pay the 6. Sorry? From zero, yeah. Right.
So I did not know that I could keep my gas receipts and so forth. Is it that if I'm able to prove that I have to go from Montego Bay to Kingston every week, twice a week, and so from deduction, the gas cost is
And your
X
toll,
amount,
and your toll.
and my toll.
Mm-hmm.
Once I can prove it, even though I don't have the receipts, can this work, or do I have
But
to
how
go
are you going to be able
and
to
dig up the
prove
receipts
without reasonable
My
doubt?
Instagram that I was in the town. I'm joking.
No?
So it shows that I was not in Montego Bay on that day. I'm seriously like, how would we go?
Yeah, but the government is looking for documentary proof. Right? So the only slip through the crack is if you file a return and you never get audited. That's the only way.
Good evening. One thing I'm not so clear on. Is this a percentage you're getting back or discounted from the tax that you are about to pay? Or is it that, let us say I register, I'm running a business, but it's just barely breaking even or I'm losing. But I did pay some tax in gas and whatever. Am I getting that back?
If you have
Or
a business,
if I file
if you
a
have
return, so
business,
I'm not profiting
you have
where?
income, right? You have income, right?
Well, yes, but I'm saying I'm breaking even from the income. So mostly I'm losing at the expense side to keep this business going. So all the expenses that I've incurred in the business, so like transportation, is what I'm filing for and getting back from those taxes that I've paid already, or is it on payments that I'm about to make, based on income? You understand?
No, I'm not quite sure what you're asking.
All right. So I'm running a business, right? And it's costing me $10,000 to run that business for the year. And
What's your
I've
income?
earned,
What's your income though? That's
and my
that's
income,
your expense,
that's
right?
my expense,
Right.
and my income comes up to be maybe 11,000. So I'm not profiting much.
So you have a 1, yeah?
So I have a 1.
Yeah.
What I am asking is, when I file my tax returns and I put in all this $10,000 worth of expenses that I've had, right? Am I getting back from that expense, or is it that I must make a certain amount of profit for them to give me back?
No, what you're missing is that 10,000 costs. Perhaps you're looking at it as your direct costs, right? However, you have other costs, other operating costs that you need to consider, like your repairs, maintenance, as you say, your electricity, your telephone. You use a mobile, right? You hook up straight. What's the cost? How much you pay per month? You can, of course, recover all these expenses because they're for business purposes. Yeah? So at the end of the day, maybe that's what I'm saying. When you look at the balance, what your accountant does, right? Your bottom line for accounting perhaps is different from that for taxation if you have a very good tax person, right? So there are expenses your accountant may be missing out on. But because you're tax specialist, right? If they really care about you, looking to see how you can save and how you can pay the least amount of tax, or perhaps get some losses that you can carry forward. You know, in future years when you start make profit, right? You can utilize these losses, right? Right. So that could help you. Yeah.
If I could shed some light just on his point, as a person employed by an agency, the employer will pay their statutory deductions and so on, and the threshold that was recently increased
to 1.5
to 1.5 million means that you do not pay any PAYE up to the monthly amount, which is around $125,000. So in your business that you're running, what do you do? All right, you do your films and all of that. And when your gross comes to 1.5 for the year and above, then you'll be required to pay the PAYE and all the statutory deductions. Now, if you do not earn over 1.5 million, you don't have to pay, you don't have that tax anyway, right? But you still have to file and show what your profit and earnings are and so on. So now, let us say he has a very, very profitable business. He's under the 3 million, but he's above the threshold that the government has set. What I think he wants to know is, what are the benefits of showing that I had these expenses, I work from my home? Is it that the tax that the government says, all right, you earn 2 million for the year, you're supposed to pay $50,000 in taxes? Is it that by making these claims, showing all these receipts, he can then get a deduction from that amount set to be paid? Yes.
Yeah, the difference with a company as opposed to an individual. As an individual, right, you have all your income, right? And if you also work for a company, right, you also
Not also as a self-employed.
Self-employed, so that's your income, right? It's at the top, right? All expenditures throughout the year, as guided by the tax laws, the deductible expenses, then you would list them, right? You also take into consideration, of course, the threshold.
So do I get back? All right. So let's say I spent $20,000 on gasoline for the year. Is it that there's a deductible portion and versus non-deductible? How is it beneficial to show that?
You can end up in a refundable position. You can. If your that's your income, right? No, the only way you're going to have a refund is if your expenses is less than the threshold of 1.5. But if you're a company, right, if you're operating as a sole trader, what happens? You make a loss, right? And the loss stays on the books. In future years, you can utilize 50% of the loss against any liability in each year. So that's the difference. You're an individual, so I'm an individual, right? You wouldn't get the money back. You would, if you make a profit, yeah. Clear? Any clearer?
So this is how we build companies in Jamaica. We have an idea, and we sit down for a few years, some of us, and we percolate the idea, and we input a lot of elements. We study, we travel, we research, we do all that. We sit down with artisans, craftspeople, intellectuals who know our business, and we learn over X amount of years, maybe. Then, one day we get the bright spark and maybe some investor money, and we put out this product, okay? And we then create a company to put out this product. How do you treat those 3 years of my hard work, investment in research, etc.? Forget and bearing in mind that a lot of it will not be actual mileage on the road, but intellectual work. Yeah, you understand? Which is an intangible mileage sort of thing. Because when we put the product on, we form a company. The company files taxes. But none of me who was working for 3 years.
Before the company was formed.
Before the company was formed. You're laughing. You know the answer is, under law, we forfeit all of that. Is it correct?
Right.
I just wanted to explain that one. Can you explain that to the people in general? 'Cause I've been through it, and you know what.
So it's
I would like
simple-
them to
I
understand.
mean, right, putting it simply, is like while you're doing your research, perhaps it could be seen like your hobby then, right? You're doing the groundwork, the field work. You probably should have been more forward thinking and register your business with the intent, right, of all this research that you're carrying on now, right? It's yeah, sunk costs. That's sunk cost in accounting. You cannot recover that cost. But even for accounting purposes, can you put that in your books going forward now as soon as you register the company?
The company now says, okay, for your work in the past, I'm now going to reward you with.
Yeah, but I mean, look at it fairly now, be fair, right? You did not have a company 3 years ago. You incur expenses 3 years ago. Now you have a company today. Can you seriously go back and carve out all these expenses and offset it against any possible income that you made in 2018? Is that fair?
Yes, because the person who puts cash in gets to do that. Because he made that cash over time, etc. Now he's putting it into the business. And he has that cash. What about the intellectual input?
Yeah, speaking exactly on that.
Other little elements in travel. And therein is where I said the problem. They said, no, you were part of a company then. You can't claim it because
We can't claim it, no.
that wasn't the job you had.
Right, mm-hmm.
The sweat that goes up. You understand?
So you're up for advocating for changing the tax laws?
Well, I do believe that there should be a system.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to ask you this.
Yeah, serious.
Because somebody I know has created what they call a shell company situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this is actually the answer. It's not getting very much foothold in government and tax places. But it created a thing called a shell company, which allows any individual to it's almost like money in escrow. It's like company in escrow.
Right.
Whereas if I have an idea, I put it in a shell company situation, right? Which them as a lawyer can keep and a tax accountant can keep this shell company alive because of your, the government. So they created a shell company. So if I want to go into this sort of situation, I can create a shell company which allows me to have the accounting in that process and then paying on it. That is very new. And I don't know.
Very new and very creative. Very new, very creative.
But it just never been tested.
Right. So I mean, I remember the rights of the commissioner. The commissioner can go against anything that
No, the
yeah.
commissioner can just kick it off.
Yeah, they can. They can.
Just adopt it.
Until it's written in law, then right, we can't speak boldly about it.
Right there for to just by signature make it law that
He can. That's why I say, are we?
when you kick out him can bring in.
He can. I mean,
Can he just say, okay, fine.
if he agrees with you, yeah,
Oh,
yeah, 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 man. You can get a gazette pass if it's right.
And the same thing for the negative. He can't just do it.
Equally, right.
It's a big gap, because a lot of what we do comes that way.
But I mean, that's how tax laws are formed, though. It starts from here, right? So there's an idea. So, yeah,
What business we have ideas.
maybe in another 5 years or so, or even less, that could be part of our tax laws. So, you have a valid point.
Well,
Yeah.
to ask something that's actually very relevant to his question, it's something that has happening to me. And
Can
as
you
he
stand,
said,
please? Sorry.
Huh?
Can you stand?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
So as he was saying, if you develop a aspect or a product over time, and then after that you register your business after. For example, this isn't really appropriate to entertainment, but for example, if you're developing a recipe for 3 years before you have formed your company, would you not then be able to value the recipe itself as it is a product that you have developed and then attach a cost to that recipe and place it as a asset of the company?
Remember, as I said, you learned before about your IP. So whatever you can value in your business, it becomes an asset. It falls on your balance sheet, right? So it becomes a part of your financial statement, and you can recover the costs from the year in which, I mean, it has been, the value has been placed, and you decide to put it on your balance sheet.
So
you can start recovering the cost. So that thing you created over a 5-year period, right?
Yes.
Got it valued this year, right? It's now in your financials. Then for this year,
so if
you
I
start
can
recovering the
attach
cost.
a value for it in the year that
It needs a value, right?
Yes.
So you need a valuator, right? So after it's valued, then it forms part of your financials. And now that's an asset, and
so
you can
in
start
regards to
recovering
what
the
he
cost.
was saying, so then in those 3 years that you were developing that idea, would he then be able to value that idea in the year of making his company? So then wouldn't he then be able to essentially recoup the cost just by
not
by
one
attaching
go.
an
It's
appropriate
over.
value?
It's over a period of time as well, right?
I'm gonna say
yeah,
it
but
all happened in 1 year.
he can recover bits of it over X number of years.
Okay.
Depending on the value of it.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah. You have valuators who are into like IT stuff and whatever, right, who specializes. I'm not a valuator, so I'm no expert. I can't speak to you on valuation, I'm sorry. Right, so just want to remind you to be conscious of the fines that are out there and some of these penalties that you will incur. It's not only a fine of up to like 5-10 million, you could also be fined plus get 12 years imprisonment. I've never seen anybody yet gone to prison in Jamaica for tax, but right. So think about all these tax types in your business. Where are you earning the income, right? Is it in Jamaica, US, Canada, combination? Incentives. Do you have incentives that you can apply for, like your PIR? When you value your when you have your IP, that's an asset. That's a claim that you could make. We could call that an incentive because it does reduces your tax liability, right? GCT, you need to always remember about your GCT you spend, right? Each month or each week, each day, right? And there are invoices, so you have input tax. And I mean, if you're registered for GCT purposes, don't go writing an invoice to anybody and having 16.5% on it if you're not registered for GCT. You're not and should not collect GCT if you're not registered to do so. Right, so what's important for you guys? Take away this evening, remember, for customs, you have your PIR that you need to think about, right? What does your PIR do for you? Waiver of import duty, SCF. For GCT deferral, you need to go into TAJ. It's not automatic. It's something you need to apply for. But it could waive that 16.5% at the port. Basically, that's my tax presentation to you. You've been great. Very good audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karine. Main takeaways were register as a sole trader or as a business and pay your taxes. Up next, we have Doyen. He'll be speaking on the state of the industry for animation. Doyen Williams. Come on.
Evening, everybody. Not too certain how I'm going to follow those two riveting presentations because my stuff is a little bit just industry oriented. But I'll go ahead anyway. What we're here to talk about is the emerging industry of animation, what has gone already, what has happened already, and where we are when we talk about animation in looking at ourselves on a more global context. But before I begin, just to ask, is anybody interested in animation, apart from the guy who's actually from the Animation Association? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Great. All right, cool, great. All right, woo. Talking to somebody then. All right, finally. And you don't count. True, very true. A very important somebody, as a matter of fact. And so, what I'll start with is let me just start off by actually asking some questions of the people who are here and are interested in animation. From what you've been seeing and what you've been hearing lately, you've heard stuff about animation lately, like in the paper, something about $1 billion, training, lots of licenses for software. We've heard these things, right? Oh, yeah, you can't. You didn't hear? All right, good. All right, so that's something I'll cover as well very quickly. Do we have any storytellers? I know there was somebody here that wrote comedy, and we have another one here. There's somebody, there we go, there's a comedy writer. Any other writers in the building? Everybody writes. Good. Not necessarily comedy, but right? Because one of the things that you'll find from my presentation as I get into it is that one of the things we lack is content. And I can't understand how Jamaica, being big storytelling nation that it is, we still don't have that much content. Actual content. If you have an answer, hold on. Don't give it to me yet. When I reach that part, I'll take the answer from you. Trust me. All right? Don't give it to me yet. I just want to know, say somebody have an answer. Right? So, just to jump in very quickly. Ooh, a power mark. Just to jump in very quickly. One of the things that we do is we tend to look at the industry every year and we look at everywhere else. And we try to figure out what are the components of those other industries that are doing well in animation, and how best can we emulate them, right? And so we've identified probably, I would say, about 5 key factors that I'm going to talk about and where we are and what things are happening in Jamaica with regards to those 5 key factors. And I'm going to encourage you to follow up with the president of the Animation Association as well as the Film Commission with regards to getting more information on how and when things are happening. So the first thing that we look at is we've identified the 5 components: education, business, and business breaks down into a lot of things, policy, trade associations, culture, and research. Did I say 5? I meant 6. I have a problem with counting sometimes. But those are the general 6 areas that we focus on and that we look at what is happening around the globe and in Jamaica with regards to what's happening. So far as education is concerned in Jamaica, we currently have a lot of institutions offering animation programs. We have UWI offering an animation program. We have UTEC offering an animation program. We have Edna Manley, College of the Visual and Performing Arts, offering a degree animation program as well. We also have the Hart VTDI offering an associate degree in animation. And we have iCreate coming up with another associate degree as well, right? So we have a good couple institutions looking at offering degreed studies in animation. Now, the trick about these degreed studies is that they're all focused on the same thing, which is the technical production of animation, right? So even though we have all these institutions that are offering animation, we don't have a wide variety of training within our animation institutions. And so that's one of the things that we're looking at beginning to develop, right? But right now we're looking at trying to build out the skills that are necessary to offer services to the wider world and to start bringing in money for animated services. And so if there are people who like animation from the point of drawing and animating, world is set for you right now. You need to get in contact with Carmack, UTEC, Edna Manley, one of those people, get your degree, get to be one of the first people with an animation degree in Jamaica. And that way, you're in a much better place for when animation studios begin to look for workers. You're sitting down there saying, hey, hire me, give me money, right? So education-wise, we are on the upswing, but we're not showing the kind of variety that we need in order to be globally competitive quite yet. But we're getting there, right? Then now we move on to business, because if you're doing train people to the work, they need people to employ them. True? Right? So we're looking at how many studios are there in animation currently? What does a business look like, and how much money are they making? Is there really any money in animation? And that is where we find that things are coming to come. Right? We have officially 2 animation studios, unofficially about 5, right? And these animation studios are still doing service-oriented work rather than producing their own animation. And so they face the struggle of always attracting work from outside, right? We're trying now, which is why we spoke about content earlier, we're trying now to get to the point where we have the content that can drive the work for these animation studios. So they are currently looking for stuff to do. They're looking for work to do. And so if you're a storyteller with an idea, please, I encourage you, reach out. Reach out to Jan. Jan will put you in contact with the relative studios, and you can probably begin to see your work come to life. Right? So business-wise and studio-wise, we not exactly there, kind of shaky, but again, it is a nascent industry, and we've only spent the last 6 years doing anything, right? We started talking about animation in 2012. We had an animation conference in 2013, but really and truly, any significant work has been put into animation since 2016. So it's still very, very new, right? And we're still working a lot on it. When we talk about animation, we talk about the animation business. We also talk about the idea of developing stories, producing stories, licensing stories, marketing stories, and going over into distribution and merchandising. A lot of those parts of the pipeline have not been built out as yet. And this is because currently we're in a space where we need to prove that animation works. Right? In order to attract investors into this kind of business, you need a proof of concept. You need to show people that animation actually works. Right? Now I'll take the comment.
Yes, no, I'll just emphasize what you said. I'll just sort of highlighting and emphasizing and reacting to what you said. We need to show people on both sides of the equation that animation works.
Exactly.
Now, the big guys out there in the world, it is proven animation works. If you need a thing, look at the success of the films. Yeah? What you really need, what the problem we're having right now is Massive and Co., who we are teaching animation, has no proof that that study works, or having spent time learning it works.
Right. Okay. Well,
so it's the other side of it.
I would challenge you on that one.
Sure.
And I would say that actually, based on what came out of a very, very recent trip, it's working. Example, we have at least 2 animators with stories that have garnered attention from large distributors, including Disney, including Wildbrain under DHX. So it's working. It's working. The thing is, we're not necessarily highlighting those stories yet, but it's working.
All right. One of the problems that I've seen doing film, and I've been interested in animation for quite a few years, is bringing people together that want to get things done. And I mean, for example, if you are a script writer, most times you approach a filmmaker, animator, their first instinct is to charge you way more than you can afford. And vice versa, if you are even an animator and you talk to a script writer, they want to charge you. So I think a part of the problem is we need assistance from persons like you and organizations that bring people together who want to get the work done without cash.
All right. And you see, for that one, I'm glad that I'm here with the president of the Animation Association, who actually raised his hand to answer, so I don't need to answer.
Right, so like I was having the discussion with you before lunch, but we didn't get a chance to continue it. The thing about it is, of course, script writing is work, animation is work. So of course, it's natural for people to expect to get paid, especially if you approach them in that manner of, hey, I want to do this series, blah, blah, blah. However, there are situations, one of the things I said to you is that if you can convince somebody to come on board with you. And convincing doesn't mean begging. It literally means you tell somebody a story, and I've seen it happen in our JAN meetings, I've seen it happen in our JAFTA meetings. JAN and JAFTA, these associations, as I said, are communities. This is where the writers, the animators, the actors, the video editors, everybody meet and gather. And when they talk, and somebody said, boy, I have this idea, but I don't know how I'm going to get it done. When the writer hears that idea and goes, wow, that's a nice idea, I want to write it for you. Can I write it? That happens. It happens all the time, right? So it's just a matter of approach, and the thing is that being a part of the association is that community that you're talking about. Because the thing with the association is that these are trusted members. These are people who maybe they don't know each other initially, but when they join the association, they get to know each other. And when you get to know each other, then it becomes easier to have that conversation. I have this film, but I don't have a writer. I don't have this. I don't have that. And when they hear the idea, some writers will say, no, that's not my kind of thing. Other writers will say, yeah, I'm on board with you. But if you just approach a stranger just because you hear they're a writer, of course they're going to want to charge you because they don't know you. There's a barrier. So join the associations. Don't hear about these associations and don't go and investigate. Go and investigate, find out what it's about. If you know someone in it, ask them, how can I join? Even if you're not ready to join it, ask, how can I attend a meeting? If I can't get to Kingston to attend a meeting, can I go online and stream and watch and ask some questions? A gentleman earlier, he's not here now, but he was saying he wants to start a JAFTA chapter in... Oh, you're right. He wants to start a JAFTA chapter in Mobay, and I said to him, go right ahead, because the fact of the matter is, we can't come to Mobay every single month. If you guys can form that camaraderie, I'm pretty sure there are lots of writers in Montego Bay. I'm pretty sure there are lots of actors. When you pick up somebody out of drama club and assume they can act, it's completely different from when you sit down and say, hey, let's have a casting call, and you'd be surprised. I've met people at casting calls who right after the casting call, they say, hey, even if you don't call me, if you're working on a project, here's my number, right? They don't even want to be paid. They're just like, I want to be in something, I want to hone my craft, but it comes from that gathering and trust.
And I want to build on that because you did challenge me to produce something tangible. So what I would say is, if I were you, if I were sitting in your seat, in your place, I would pay very close attention to Jan over the next couple of weeks. If I were you, if I were sitting in your seat, I would pay very close attention to Jan over the next couple of weeks. Yes.
Sure.
Right?
Sure. Oh, and to
Yes.
find the associations, you can find them on Facebook, Instagram. What's that? To join JAFTA is $1,000 a month. Well, both associations, it's $1,000 a month. Or if you're going to pay for the whole year, JAFTA is $8,000 a year, JAN is $10,000 a year.
So, that brings me to my other point. 2 points, actually. The entire thing of culture and associations. What we find with animation is that we still talk about animation as plain and simply cartoons, right? But animation is so much more. Animation has an entirely different side that is built on non-entertainment animation. So you're talking about all of the 3D that goes into a Jagas training session, or you're talking about all of the 3D that powers a remote surgery from a doctor, or you're talking about live animation in dance. These kind of things are here. And in Jamaica, we have a nice motion capture system now, actually one of the best in the world. We also have a nice facial capture system, actually one of the best in the world. One of the ways we can begin to apply these things is by looking at Usain Bolt. Let's track Usain running on the track for an entire training session. Let's look at how he moves his hands, how he moves his feet, what muscles are moving. So that what we can begin to look at is how to develop another Usain Bolt. Again, all of this is an offshoot of animation. And it is where we're trying to go across things like animation research and building out the animation culture. So the next step that I want to skip back to the business, I want to talk about distribution and marketing. Now, one of the biggest challenges that the animation industry faces in Jamaica is that we don't have those two pieces in place. We have broadcasters who are reluctant is the word. Right, there we go, reluctant, right, to take on local content or to play the role of becoming a developer, meaning putting up financing for a good story. And that reluctance is one of the things that keeps our content very, very shallow. I see the hand. You want me to come back to you? All right, right? That reluctance is one of the things that keeps our content shallow. So one of the things that we're looking at building out is how to build out this ecosystem that allows content to be created and content to be shown and then content to be exported. Because really and truly, that's where we want to get to. Where instead of us trying to run down the business, we're pushing it out, right? That's what we want to do. So with regards to where we are on that, we are currently in dialogue with our broadcasters around creating that kind of an ecosystem. I can't speak to how developed those negotiations are. However, those negotiations are ongoing, right? It is not where it needs to be in order to facilitate the growth of the industry. That I can say, right? So let me hear what you had to
Almost don't need the question because you basically took it there. But
Okay.
I just wanted you to speak about, because earlier you spoke about not having a lot of content. Well, we need content. And then just a moment ago, you said we have the content. So but we have content. Broadcasters are not.
Exactly.
Because if I go on YouTube right now, there's a lot of Jamaican cartoons. Like there's a lot of anime. Like there's a couple pages worth because I've looked, right?
All right.
They don't have a lot of hits. They're not getting a lot of exposure, but the content, the content is there. You can revoice some of the voiceovers and make it clean it up and stuff, but the animation. So to the layman eye, it looks like there is content.
Here's how I will respond to that, and I'm glad that in this case I come after things like IP. Yeah. A lot of the content there is not original. That's the first thing. So we have a lot of voiceovers, we have a lot of gimmicks and so on. For the original content, right, what we find is that the animation quality, style, storytelling style is not good, is not commercially viable internationally. Great jokes for the Jamaican audience. Everybody loves it. And yes, great jokes for the Jamaican diaspora. Everybody loves it. But no investor is going to look at pumping in the amount of money it requires to take that property to develop it for a market. Have you seen? I can name two that are perfect, that speak to our Jamaicanness but are universally acceptable, right? Have you seen Song of the Sea? Yes. It's a Celtic cartoon, and it's a story about an Irish ancestry and Celtic lore, but it's done in a way where everybody can appreciate it. The other one, which is more mainstream, is Coco. C-O-C-O. Yeah, right. Coco is Mexican and Latin American, but everybody, see, you don't recognize it as Mexican and Latin American, yeah? But it's told in a way that everybody can appreciate that story. What happens is we have our stories and we tend to focus on the fact that in order to make it Jamaican, it has to A, be situated within Jamaica, B, have Jamaican characters, purely Jamaican characters, and C, be all about the Jamaican narrative and lifestyle. Those are not the things that make something Jamaican. Yes? And when we begin to expand beyond that, or even just use one of those things instead of all three, that is when we begin to hit that it's Jamaican, get universally acceptable kind of content space. I see that hand and I see that one.
Listening to you, I agree. However, aren't we missing the opportunity, I think, that a lot of the world likes Jamaica. So I would also address not that there is also a market for something that does speak of Jamaica, is very Jamaican, but is done in terms of the language, is comprehensible to those who are not Jamaican.
Okay.
So for example, France, they love Jamaica. So they don't really, there's a European market that loves us, that as soon as I say I'm Jamaican, it's like, oh, I'm a star, that they want to hear my accent, but it's just that my accent, in speaking English, I'm told, wow, your accent, I can understand where you're from. Oh, Jamaica. So we can probably tone down, but still keep the Jamaicanness, still keep some culturalness, that there still will be a market for this without losing that, because brand Jamaica on its own, just being Jamaican in itself, has an appeal to the world as well. So let us not forget that side of it too, that Akabi Chronicles, I think, with some subtitles, also has an appeal, because the diaspora, although it's growing, the diaspora is growing, so they have an interest. If we can get them to spend and have interest and show their children and so forth, and if we can, as I said, tap into other countries who are Jamaican, it appeals to them, this is a market that we should not overlook either.
Okay, great.
All right. A couple of years ago, I saw this big thing in the paper about this filmmaker. I still don't know the name or anything like that. This filmmaker who did a film and wanted to put it in multiplex, but they wouldn't allow it because of, I don't remember, I think it was a quality or something. The other day I was thinking about the idea, well, a couple months ago, I was thinking about it, and I said that, we have so many short films. There's GatFest, there's other film festival, Lingnam Variety, and a few other film festivals that you will enter and you don't get accepted and stuff like that. What you go do with your film then? You put it on YouTube, you get 5 likes. Cause you're not a Kevin or so you're not gonna get a whole heap of likes. People not gonna see your stuff. Right? Kevin, we know you're a superstar. So anyways, right? Now I came up with an idea, and I'm actually announcing it here for the first time. All right. No. This is no. This is not a. No. And I don't mind. Anybody want to create? I just love to see great stuff. You know what I mean? So if you create something of mine, no problem, really. No problem, really. Anyways, so the idea that I had, and I know there are a lot of filmmakers here. And Renee, you're here, nice to see you. There's an idea that I've had for quite some time called Movie Night, right? Where we as young filmmakers could come together and we could showcase our own films to the general public. We could invite the business people to come in, and by doing that, people will actually, you never know, you may see you never know, there may be somebody that came with their family. Their wife dragged them there and then come and say, I always want to do a story about my business. There you go. The director or the filmmaker that did a project that impressed them the most, they walk over to them, hey, I want you to do it. There's business for you. There's upgrades for you. And the more that happens, right? Well, you see, that's the thing. I'm not in Kingston. I'm in Mobay. You know what I mean? No, but I mean, I was just saying my one is a little bit different. I'm gonna share it with you. That's why I can share it outward now. Mine is a little bit different and deeper than just words. However, so there are ways to distribute your stuff, even if you're not at the level of the cinemas as yet. Because I mean, we come here, we just watch films, and it's just films that are Jamaican made. Of course, you go need for me certain qualities. Kenanga want have some child come and say certain content being displayed. You know what I mean? But I'm just saying that, listen, we can start distributing our films amongst ourselves. And then by that means, I'm not sure who said it. I believe it was Demar. Yeah, Demar said it, that a lot of filmmakers are always about money and stuff like that. By we having those type of stuff together, we may see someone and you say, I like how that youth shoot. Or I like the actress there, hook me up now, and stuff like that, and that will actually broaden the community. So I have no problem with taking on the thing to start or to help be a part of a Mobe chapter for JAFTA, because I'm all about the Oscars, So let's grow,
Let me hear Tony. Let me hear what Tony says.
My little quick question is really this. In terms of how much a second have you reached with the media for animation? I mean, what rate per second have you achieved that? And what rate per second is sort of sustainable in our society?
You're talking about the
production.
The cost of
No,
production?
how much the media will pay us? The major media will pay us what rate per second
Oh, well,
for
that's,
footage?
no, that's not a question I could answer.
Wait, no. And in terms of our general media scope, from the Olympics all the way down to the news, is there any valuation as to the real cost per second and value of broadcast material? Is there any real tangible way in our entire media scope that we can say, look, this programming is worth this per second because, you understand where I'm going with that? Because we really have nothing to argue with.
Exactly.
Are there any real models out there?
Broadcasters actually have models.
Huh?
The broadcasters have their models,
Because we're I mean here locally, you know.
Yeah. Exactly how much this is and yeah.
Because the problem, for example, over years, I'll give you a little history. We were competing against cereals from the US at $100 an hour. They just pay that and they have the Jeffersons for life. Right, so you can't beat that. Then you get to our locally produced programs that have different values, but we could never beat that. But one of the larger problems we have in today's marketplace is they want $200,000 an hour for us to pay for the time before we even get to making money.
Exactly.
Have you passed that too?
Yes.
Because now that's CVM broke.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's actually one of the things that's one of the things that's being worked on. But one moment. That is not something that is peculiar to Jamaica. Right? Let's get that out of the way. It's not just in Jamaica that people have to pay to get content on. It's just that in larger markets, there's also a very, very vibrant program to develop content. That part of it is not exactly present in Jamaica currently, but it's being worked on. It's being worked on, which is why I say it's being worked on. I don't want to forget Hanifa's questions, and I don't want to forget the points raised. So let me just respond to those two, and then I'll come right back to you. Right? I'm not saying let us remove the Jamaica from our content, just to be clear. What I'm saying is there's a way to tell a story without it being entirely localized, so that its appeal can stretch to much more than the Jamaican diaspora, right? And I gave you those two examples. It's interesting that you brought up the example that you did. I won't repeat the name. It's interesting that you brought the example that you did because it forces questions of why is it not still airing, right? And if you ask those questions within particular circles, you'll find that the reason it is not airing is the exact same thing. It only appealed to the diaspora, right? There wasn't a lot of international appeal. Yeah, and so after a while it became less and less investable. Other factors are there, but one of the main chunks, the content simply becomes less and less investable. Exactly. But you need an investor on board for it to to give you that time, and that's the issue, right? You had a question.
You just answered my question.
Okay.
It was, in terms of investors, not as though you're gonna sit down and say, all right, kind of looking for what to create that will attract these persons, Oh, people do. Well,
it's called data-driven design.
Data-driven design.
Yeah.
Wonderful. There's a term for it. Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll have to allow that to sink in.
Yeah.
Because since people do, I'm not unethical now.
No, because
if I go there.
and as a matter of fact, it's one of the things that was highlighted at a very recent conference that a team of Jamaicans are just returning from. The fact that children's content is changing. The messaging is changing. The way you design your character is changing. What you go for at a particular age group is changing. And in order to continue to sell into the market, these are the things that you need to be aware of. Right? So there is an entire field around data-driven design. So That's one of the things that I was going to point to as our education is on the production side of things so far, not so much on the business side of things. And until we have those two things working together, then we're going to find ourselves in a spot where we're still nascent.
All right, then. If I can just have a quick spin-off question then. I have an idea for a blog about the best sides of Jamaica. I don't know if it was triggered by the recent uprising of crime. And now being here is making me feel as though it has an entire appeal to the diaspora. And so what suggestions would you make in terms of my doing some market research as to how I could therefore not have not really data-driven design, but to make it have a wider appeal, blog incorporating online videos and so on.
Once you're talking about anything with market intelligence with the creative industries, I'm going to point you to two people or two organizations. One, your trade association. Your trade association. So whether or not you want to do it animated or film or writing, find your trade association. More likely than not, you'll find somebody with market intelligence within that trade association. Second place I'm going to point you to is what should be the center of market intelligence for anything in the creative industries, the Film Commission. Okay? I'm pushing Renee under the bus.
I will talk to you, girl.
And they're consultants that have that kind of information.
And our new JFTA chapter that's going to be formed in Montego Bay, right?
Exactly.
Awesome.
Right here.
Some voice work for Nickelodeon's Max and Ruby. They had a little role for a Jamaican school teacher.
Nice.
So yeah. This is really cool. But I had an issue because I moved here, and they were still doing production in Toronto.
Right.
And I wanted to get them to allow me to do the voicing here, because I'm by myself in the studio anyway, and they put it together post.
Right.
And I was wondering, is there any
dubbing stations? There are, yes. What I will say is that we have a lot of studios equipped to do dubbing. Are there many studios that make that their business focus? Not the time.
There's a lot of opportunity. I missed out on that opportunity just because I couldn't find someone that could facilitate that. So I wanted to.
I know there's some amount of equipment and training. I don't think that there's a studio.
There is a studio that did this in Kingston. So the Sprinter that was shot by Storm Salto last year, they had actually, I'm trying to remember the name of the studio right now. I'm trying to remember it, but they did ADR there. The only difference though is that they actually brought in, so the studio was somewhat equipped as a recording studio. They brought in the additional ADR equipment that they needed, and then they used it. Anchor Media, right? Yeah.
There we go. So keep asking questions.
Great. So you have options.
All right. So what I like about this discussion thus far is the overarching idea is we have to start creating, and then once that creating buzz happens through collaboration, that creation through collaboration is where you begin to find the demand for these services. You begin to find the demand for dubbing, and you hear that dubbing is happening. But that's because we're in this space, right? So what keeps on coming out to me is there has to be a genuine effort to collaborate and to engender that idea of creation through collaboration. And I believe the seat of that should be within the associations or their chapters. So I encourage wholeheartedly, yet again, I think I've said the word association a lot this talk, but please get involved in the association because that's how it works. Yeah. But I mean, and from what I understand from these associations, you're paying $1,000 not just for community, you're also paying $1,000 for the expertise that is resident within that community.
Oh, and just sorry to cut you.
Okay, all
but
right, cut me.
Just to mention, sorry to cut you, but just to mention, the thing is, even though you're paying this $1,000 a month, Yeah, I know that's an issue too. But like what one of the things I was saying to him is that you can come to the meetings for free. You can get on the mailing list for free, right? Right. You know, the thing is that, as he was saying, it's the other benefits that you won't be able to get to access. But you can come to the meetings for free. You can mingle with the community because it's an open society. It's an open membership. You have to bear in mind that the commitment that you have to make in terms of paying, this allows you to get the expertise that you need. Like one of the things that we do, we have critique sessions. So persons who have an idea, and of course this is a tangible idea, they can come, they can pitch the idea. If it's something they've already animated, they can show it, they can get some constructive feedback on it. And this is part of the process that helps your content become marketable and become universal, because we have a tendency to create our stories or create our content in a bubble, not realizing that, as Mr. Williams was saying, there is a format now, there are trends that need to be followed, there are things that need to be taken into consideration. So when you make content and say, oh, we have plenty content, you have to bear in mind, yes, it's plenty content, but who is it targeting? Right? When we went to Kids Screen last week and we were speaking to different studios, speaking to different broadcast companies, they were telling us specifically what they want to see and why they want to see it. And if we fall outside of that format, then we are basically not targeting what they want. We're not targeting the millions or billions of people that they target. So coming to the association, you'll get to hear these things, because everything we find out, we share, literally. Every single thing we find out. If there's an opportunity, if we go knocking on Doyen's door and we say, Doyen, is there something, an opportunity available? All right, meeting.
All right. So the last thing that I want to speak to before I demit my post at the podium is policy. And that is where I think we have a good deal of work to do. And policy is always about the people. So if you have ideas, we are inviting them. Please let us know what ails you, so that when we design a policy or design a strategy, it works for you. Not for we, but for you. Right? Because you guys are the creatives. And a lot of work is on the way within JAMPRO, within the World Bank, within the government of Jamaica, around designing policy. Again, your key to access. I'm not going to say the word, but right? So that way you can get your voice heard. Yes? So with that said, thank you for having me. Thank you for participating.
Thank you, Doyen. I think that was very enlightening. Again, we've seen this theme all through yesterday and all through today. Join your associations, be actively involved, and create content. It's very important that if we're going to support you, we do what we do. On your side, you have to be coming with the work that you're creating. Okay, so up next we'll have Renee Robinson, the film commissioner, to speak to us about the strategic vision for the Jamaica film industry and wrap up.
All right. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
You all doing all right? You had a good session today, yesterday. This is now the third year in a row, third year that we're offering the open house forum. And it really, I have to give some kudos to former film commissioner Carol Beckford, because she started out doing these open houses. We've changed a little bit of the format of it, but the mandate and the mission and the spirit behind it remains the same, in that we see a need from an institutional level to create discussions and to create spaces for all of our stakeholders to come together. There's a lot that is changing from institutions, policy, legislation, partners, stakeholders, opportunities. There's a lot that changes throughout the year. And so at JAMPRO, we're committed to having this activity once a year, one in Kingston and one in Montego Bay, to make sure that the information that you need about how you can do your best work and how you can engage with the different partners and stakeholders, that we're able to get that information out to you. We do it once a year. The industry associations do it once a month. So join your association. All right. So I'm going to close off our session today and for the week, speaking about the 3-year strategic plan for the film industry. As you guys know, we work very closely with the industry associations, with JAFTA and with JAN, with our partners at the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, as well as with MICAF and OPM, and then with entities such as the World Bank, the IDB, the Caribbean Development Bank, with Carib Exports as well. So we are really in the hub. So we're sitting in the middle of all of these other entities and these associations, and creating and designing policies and strategies and implementing operations that are intended to help you and to help you do your best work. So that's our goal, that's our mandate, is to build global business and to make sure that you guys you have the tools and the ecosystem that you need in order to do your work. So that's why we're here. There's no click on? All right, so you're controlling? All right, cool. Okay, so what does JAMPRO do anyway? I think I'm going to skip through a lot of these beginning sessions because over the past 2 days you probably have gotten some of this information. So we're here to build global relationships and to realize business opportunities. We have a special vision to be a world-class business enabler and promotions agency. And our goal is to make sure that Jamaica is the premier destination to do business. Now that doesn't necessarily just mean business in terms of attracting business to Jamaica, but also ensuring that the ease of doing business within Jamaica and the processes that you have to go through are smooth. So that's what we're here to do. And then of course you see our mission to drive economic development and growth. Can continue. The Film Commission itself is actually the oldest film commission in the English-speaking Caribbean. We were established in 1984. The film commissions have been growing all over the Caribbean, and I hope you guys will be proud to know that the Jamaican Film Commission is actually invited to other countries to speak about the process of establishing and running a film commission. So we're leading in the space, and people, like they do with Jamaica all over, people are looking to us to guide and to build. We're mandated to build these relationships in the Jamaican film industry, and of course we do it through export, investment, trade, and to a certain extent in sector development. There has been the history, when you look at sort of the trajectory and the history of the Film Commission and what we've been doing, there was a long history of Jamaica's film industry where we were attracting international productions, but I think in recent years there really has been a shift in that idea and in those strategies, because we see greater value in actually ensuring that we're able to create an indigenous film industry. Because one of the things that happens, yes, it's great to have international productions come here. People are working and, the activities happening. But at the end of the day, those productions, they put their content on a hard drive, they get on a plane, and they leave. And that means that none of us have negotiated contracts. We have not learned how to balance the budget or to do production accounting. We have not learned how to negotiate anything as it relates to distribution. We have no creative control over the final product. And at the end of the day, we're not actually receiving any kinds of royalties or remunerations from anything that is done from a sales or an acquisition of that content. So that needs to change. And that's one of the things that us being able to create and to establish a firmer local ecosystem of building content means that we will start being able to monetize our own IP, and we will actually start being able to be on the global stage and be seen on the global stage as content creators instead of just content providers. So that's a really, really key shift in how we approach the industry. I'll skip through some of this. You guys are familiar with the stuff that we've done. This is just a slide that I like to include because it's important for us to understand how we fit into the global ecosystem. Now, this slide, we're not really seeing it so much, but at the bottom there, you'll see what the figures are for Latin America and the Caribbean. This is from a 2015 Ernst & Young report showing that 1.9 million jobs are being tracked within Latin America and the Caribbean. Now, how much of that is Jamaican jobs? Also, we're seeing 124 billion US dollars being tracked in terms of revenue coming from the creative sector. How much of that is coming from Jamaica? And also, how much of that is happening in Jamaica, but we're not actually recording it? And because we're not recording it, we're not tracking the data, we're not reporting it, and it is not showing up in these great big Ernst & Young reports that they publish every year to show the economic impact of the creative sector. So this is a key thing that we also need to start changing. Again, some more data as it relates to the US side of the industry. We're looking at the very top, you'll see 4% of GDP is coming out of the arts. The last data that we have for the percentage of GDP in Jamaica, thank you. The percentage of GDP, we had a stat that was reported through the PIOJ at 3.8% of GDP. But the last time that this was calculated was in 2003 with the Vanus James report. Now, that's 15 years ago. So it's time for us to actually start looking at more data and actually tracking what's happening now. I'll skip over this, but essentially what this is speaking about is a little bit on what the value proposition for the creative industry in Jamaica is at the moment, and we are trying to generate more accurate data as well. Jamaica has attracted over 1,000 film projects over the past 10 years. And even without, we do have data on it more currently as well, but in my office, we are tracking around 150 projects that are coming in a year that are being registered. Now, these are all sorts of projects. They are not all feature films. Some are shorts, they're TV commercials, music videos. All of these that we are tracking are based on what's coming in internationally. And that is one of the things that is going to be changing in the coming months as well. This year we can look forward to having an expectation of tracking local projects through a local licensing system. So right now we are issuing licensing permits and registrations to international productions, but we're not actually capturing the true economic impact of the work that you are doing every day as you are going out on your business and filming around the island. Here's some data about what we are doing as well. So even just last year, we're looking at a value of 727 million Jamaican dollars in linkages. Linkages essentially is the figure that when an international production company comes to Jamaica and decides to shoot here, linkages is what we track in terms of what they hire from Jamaica. So if they are hiring cast and crew here, if they are paying for, production services with drivers, caterers, carpenters, electricians, all of those things are part of their budget is reported to us in exchange for their film registration. And this is how we're able to show that this is the value, 727 million Jamaican dollars was generated by the film industry in terms of local production spend within the 2015 fiscal year. 1,400 people, 1,400 jobs being created. Last year, our last audited figures, which I don't have here, but I know we were over 2,500. Now that's big. Can you imagine jumping from 1,400 jobs in 1 year to over 2,500 people being employed by the film industry the year after? That means that there's something happening. That means that we are being noticed. That means that work is going on. So it's happening. It's happening. So make sure that you're a part of it. Register. What we do And this is our standard presentation, so I'll skip through, I'll go quickly through this because I really want to get to the strategy of what we are presenting to you for the next 3 years and what you can expect of your film commission for the next 3 years. But just so that you get a sense of what we are responsible for and what our mandate is. We do production advisory and production facilitation. We do promotion and facilitation of export and investment opportunities. Now, these are larger scale things. So, for example, if somebody wants to come to Jamaica and build a studio, then it's through us that gets facilitated. Policy and advocacy, Dorian had spoken a little bit about this as well. We do have a policy unit inside JAMPRO that supports and that actually provides some input as policy negotiations are done through the ministry level. So we always have a seat at that table and we're able to represent you when it is needed. Sector development initiatives. I hope many of you are familiar with JAFTA Propeller, one of the most important initiatives I think that we've launched recently in recent years. And there are several others. We have an initiative called Making Development Work, which we do with JAFTA and the British Council. And we are also building right now and about to launch an initiative called the Business of Sustainable Studios, or the BOSS project. And this is going to be done in partnership with the World Bank and with the YEDI project and JAN. So this is an animation industry sector development initiative. And then, of course, we do industry promotion. We promote Jamaica as a destination, as a business location. Now, there's always a lot of misunderstanding about what it means to promote. JAMPRO is not a marketing company that takes on the promotion of your individual projects. So it's not a way to receive free marketing services. JAMPRO's role in promotion is actually promoting the country of Jamaica as a business destination, as a business location. So we look at it from a macro scale, looking at the industry as a whole, how the industry is growing, what are the ease of doing business. So we're not necessarily working with you from an individual perspective on you have a project and you want to have marketing and promotions around that project. That's not what the promotions of JAMPRO stands for. It's what is termed industry, it's called investment or trade promotion. So there are investment promotion agencies in every country, trade promotion agencies in every country, and we all fall under the same kind of governance and the mandate body in that sense. So just because I know there's always a little bit of confusion around what that means. So what we don't do, this is also just as important as what we do, because as you can imagine, everything within the country that has anything relating to the creative sector comes to my desk at some point. And there are things that we do and things that we don't do. So we don't do script consultation. People, they do want to send a script. Hey, can you read my script? Tell me what you think. I can't read your script. Sorry. I can, but you'd have to pay for that. We don't match individual writers to producers. That's one of the networking functions that the industry associations do. So really do take advantage of that. They're there to allow you to connect with each other. We're not a formal training body either. We depend on the institutions, the educational institutions. We depend on those to fulfill that training mandate, both from a technical and from a production perspective. We don't plan screenings. Again, this is something that please have a movie night. There's nothing stopping any of you from coming together and saying, hey, we want to identify a venue, we want to curate a program, we want to invite people to come. They can pay at the door or it can be free. There's nothing stopping any of you from getting together and doing that, as long as you have cleared the rights to show that film with the rights holder for that film. So please do work with each other and make sure that you're getting exhibition opportunities. Unfortunately, we do not have a screen quota system here in Jamaica. And I don't think it's something that is necessarily going to change. There are some battles that you can't fight every battle. So the screen quota system is something that other countries do have in place, where the exhibitors, national exhibitors, have a requirement for a certain percentage of local content. Now we don't have that. It's not a law here. So the type of exhibition opportunities that we do have are things that are negotiated, but they're not things that are expected. And as Doyen had said, those negotiations are ongoing. going. We have made a little bit more headway this year with, for example, with Palace Amusement. That has happened in the past. I'm hoping to be able to speak about that soon. And also, you might know that TVJ has launched a homegrown division where they actually are commissioning other original content from local content creators. So there is some headway that has been done with the broadcasters, both theatrical and on TV terrestrial. But as I said, it's not something, there's nothing that's stopping any of you from getting together and showing your work and setting up screenings or festivals, or there's nothing stopping any of you from doing that. So please do go ahead and make those opportunities had. Yep.
Hi again. So, for someone who is a neophyte and a layman who has just gotten into the film industry, whether it be feature film or documentary, I'm more interested in how do I promote my work? How do I distribute it? Because you're saying the commission doesn't really deal with promotions. It's more of tracking what goes on from the outside on the inside and promoting Jamaica. But us as locals suffer, right? Our industry is developing and we need more promotions and more help. No, I like this function because when you come now, you're able to identify who's who and who can assist you. But can JamPro do more for local persons?
Well, that's what we are doing. So we are doing more for local persons in terms of building the ecosystem for the local industry. Now, you having content that you have created, you still have your own responsibility. It's your content. You need to make sure that you find those opportunities for it to be seen. Now, whether that means applying to film festivals, submitting your work to film festivals locally and internationally, if that means actually attending these different markets, going there, printing your business cards, going out there and talking to people. But this is the responsibility as an individual content creator you have for your work. So it's not going to be that a government entity is going to be responsible to do your marketing. What we do as well, I mean, we handle delegations. So we do have delegations that are organized as an umbrella group that do go to these different festivals and these different activities. Now, as you can imagine, budget is always an issue. So attendance at these things is not something that we're going to be paying for you to go to necessarily. You still need to be able to come up with some of that funds. We try to subsidize where we can. We try to get discounts where we can. We negotiate on behalf as a collective. We will do the organizing and the planning and putting together the delegation, but we don't have the budget to pay for everyone who wants to attend a film festival to go to a film festival. That still is your responsibility. It's your business, and you need to treat it as such, in the same way that if any of you were starting a company or starting a business, you would have a marketing budget. Now, there are entities that you can go to request some of that. I mean, the business DBJ, Development Bank of Jamaica, thanks Diane, Development Bank of Jamaica has several opportunities that people, small businesses can go to. There are grants that are available through Caribbean Development Bank, through Carib Export. You can look for creative industry grants. All of this information is available to all of us on the internet. We're in a totally different world right now in terms of access to information. And so there is a responsibility on each of you as individual business owners and individual content creators to understand and to do the research of how do you get there. I mean, there's so much on YouTube on self-distribution, you know? So you can definitely, the means are there. It's not, we're no longer in an environment where you are able to sit back and say, this institution must do this for me. All of that information is at your fingertips. So what we do is we do the umbrella stuff to make sure that the ecosystem and that the system that is in place is structured in such a way that you can do your best work. Now, opportunities come to my desk all the time, and what we do is we circulate them to JAFTA. So anything that comes to me to say, hey, here's an open call for a film festival, here's a call for funding, here's an opportunity that you can apply for. All of that stuff that comes to me, it goes to JAFTA and to Jan, and they circulate it to their members.
We also circulate everything. There's a Jamaica film industry Facebook group. I would suggest that you join that, because a lot of people, a lot of opportunities that are being circulated are sent directly to that group. And so there will always be a call. So every time there's a deadline, whether it is for funding or for submissions, we send that through online channels to make sure that people are aware of it. So make sure that you're doing that research and that you're tapping in to what is available, because I know it's difficult. I'm not going to pretend and say that it's not difficult. I've produced. I have not distributed a film myself. I've come from a festival background, so I have been working in the film industry for many years, but I come from the international business side of the film industry. So I know that these things are difficult. I'm not going to pretend that it's not. But at the same time, if we look comparatively at and yes, we are growing. We are a new industry, we are growing, and we don't have the same kind of ecosystem as a France might have or a UK might have, where certain types of funding is in place or programs are in place. We just don't have that. That's the reality. So it really does require that joint effort where you put your role in and we put our role in making the ecosystem happen, and then you have to really champion your content in the same way that any filmmaker from any other country would be going to film festivals, would be meeting those deadlines, would be going to see the development bank, would be going to the IDB. So these opportunities do exist, but it does take a little bit of time and energy and research to really find them. All right?
Just to add to what Renee was saying, when I was doing my own little research on how you can distribute a film, I found that we can use our own cast and crew. Now, we have a lot of people who are very popular online, like 100,000 likes and stuff like that on Instagram and Facebook, and they're very popular. We can actually use them in our little films, right? Give them a little role and stuff. And so, by doing that, they post it on their page, their film or our film gets more traction, and then that will now bring about more opportunities for you. Another thing is there are TV channels. There's not just there's Rave TV that Damar has. There's Flow, there's TVJ, there's CVM, there's Spy TV. There are actually so many other TV channels. So if it is that we can actually submit our films to them, or submit at least a film idea to them for it to be shown on their channels, you never know. So that's another means that you can actually use to push yourself. You know what I mean? So Anna, it's not everything that to start off you're gonna be getting the $10 million or the $5 billion or whatever. Sometimes you have to just do stuff for free and just because you love it. And the whole reason why I believe anybody here would actually be doing film is because it's something that you love.
Exactly. Yeah, thank you. We don't have budget to fund. That's just the reality of the situation. We are not given the kind of budget that that many of you are clamoring for the assistance for. So we don't have it. So what is it that we are doing? So this is I just put this together in terms of all of the different. These are the things that are being done within the Film Commission at the very present moment by 3 people, I must say, as well, who you've seen here today. So from a policy and advocacy perspective, we're in the middle of launching a film fund. It's at the stage of going through the cabinet submission approval process. The idea behind it is that it will be both private and public. So once we receive, and it's not approved as yet, but it's been written, it's been drafted, and it is circulating, it's making the rounds. And once it is approved, because it would be a private and public fund, it will then need to be populated by investors. So there's going to be an entire campaign towards identifying and targeting international and local investors who have an interest in the creative sector and who are willing to put their money into a fund in the same way that there would be a fund management process, by Proven or GK Capital or DBJ, any of these other types of funds that already exist, this would be the model that we would be using. A lot of research has gone into this. We've done a lot of comparative analysis with other countries. How their fund structures work and what is going to be necessary. This is going to be an uphill battle. I'm not even anticipating that it's going to be easy at all, because many people who have invested in the film industry in Jamaica in the past have been burnt. They have not gotten a return on their investment. So it's not going to be easy and it's not going to be fun. At the end of the day, you laugh. It's true. At the end of the day, it's something that is necessary. We do need to have access to financing, both from a grants perspective as well as from a loan, because it's a business. So even if it is a low interest rate, or a loan that you don't need to have collateral to be able to access to, because so those are some of the mechanisms that we're trying to put in place for the film fund. Jamaica has the only co-production treaty in the Caribbean with the UK. It was established in 2007 and it has never been used. So it's been, right, exactly. And the reason that it has never been used is that there's a requirement for the co-production treaty to have 20% minimum guarantee funding coming from the minority party, which would be Jamaica. So if you have a budget of $1 million, then 200,000 of that needs to be Jamaican money. So we have not been able to use it because nobody wants to put $200,000 dollars into the thing. That is, it's 20%. No. You could have a $10 film. Yeah, absolutely. So, so these structures exist, but we have not been able to operationalize them because of financing issues. So we've been having quite a few continual conversations with the BFI, which is the British Film Institute in the UK. They are the co-signatory, so the way that that JAMPRO would be the Jamaican authority, the BFI is the UK authority on the co-production treaty. And so we've had several conversations with them ongoing about what do we need to do in order to re-operationalize the co-production treaty. Production incentives, already, Danielle from the ministry was here, she spoke about that. The guide to filming is a production guide which is being researched and developed right now. It's being written. We're hoping to have that published in April, and essentially this would be a publication that will outline to you everything that we talked about these past 2 days. So if you need to use a drone, this is how you do it. If you want to shoot on the beach, if you are looking for, if you want to use the co-production treaty, these are the steps. So that guide is being written and researched and produced right now, hoping to have it ready. In fact, I was literally editing a draft of it on the plane on my way here. So that's happening. The CI business plan, this is the Creative Industries business plan. This was a project under the previous administration. It identified several recommendations for how to grow the creative industry. Some of those recommendations are continuing in our new administration, some are not. But essentially it speaks about all of the different creative industries, so not just film, but also fashion, publishing, music, so several of the other sectors as well, and how to stimulate business and development within those sectors. A baseline sector study, this I think has been advanced through the ministry as well as through the World Bank and with the YEDI project. So within the film sector and with the animation sector, we're looking at updating that baseline data. Now, whether this is labor market information or if it is baseline data in terms of production, that's what that is going to be geared towards. And essentially, this is because the last time that we had accurate countrywide, nationwide data was 2003 with the Vannis James report, and that is long overdue. Another challenge that we have in terms of data is that through Statin, our national collection agency, a lot of the items that go through the creative services, creative sector, end up in a single line item called other services. Now, this has been what it has been for, 30, 40 years, right? The ministry has dedicated within the next fiscal year that they will be providing resources in order to have that entire other services column disaggregated so that we can actually identify the line items that relate to the creative sector, and that we'll be able to have nationwide data that is accurate and that isn't skewed by being a part of the other services. So big kudos to Ministry, to MC Jess for that. We're really looking forward to having that resource coming on stream. From a sector development perspective, many of you are familiar with JAFTA Propeller. It is now 3 years running. We announced the cohort yesterday, I believe, yes? Top 10? Okay, so we announced the top 10 from the third cohort of the applications were announced at yesterday's JAFTA meeting. So again, join JAFTA, join JAN, join your associations. And essentially, this is a talent discovery program. It's an open call, and it's blind submission. So it's an open call. The applications come in with no names on them. They're given to the adjudication committee. It goes through 2 rounds of judging, and the applications are brought down. There were 50 applications. It's brought down eventually to 5. We now just launched the top 10. And those 5 final applicants, the finalists of the 5, receive production funds from the Chase Fund. They get 500,000 Jamaican dollars to produce their short film. They receive capacity building each. Right, exactly. Yes, thank you, Basil. So $500,000 each. They receive capacity building in terms of writing, directing, producing, as well as festival strategy and distribution. So here is one of those things that once you've gone through this process, you actually have access to distribution training. And then they produce the films, and then they get market attendance. So JAMPRO takes a delegation of these 5 filmmakers to 1 regional film festival and 1 international film festival within the year. We take them to Trinidad, so they do the premiere at the Trinidad and Tobago Film Festival. And then we just got back from France last week, taking them to the Clermont International Film Festival, which is the premier shorts film festival in the world, with over 3,000 distributors, sales agents, people who are there as talent scouts. So it's an opportunity. But the key thing, and I want to really highlight a little bit about this type of talent discovery program, because as I've made it clear, there is no way for the resources that we have to be able to benefit everyone. So what we have done is identified a way to cull the talent, to discover talent. And so if we help 5 people this year, then those 5 are on their way. Next year we help another 5. The year after we help another 5. So that's what we're able to do right now, because the resources are they won't be able to spread much thinner than that. So there are things that are in place, but again, I really urge you to get involved and get tapped into your industry association, because this is how you find out about these types of opportunities. We have a screenwriters program, this I'd mentioned with the British Council. It's called Making Development Work. And in the way that JAFTA Propeller is focused on shorts, Making Development Work is focused on features. So this actually brings together, it's the same blind application process, and we select 15 people for this. 5 writers, 5 script editors, and 5 producers, and those people are put together into that group of 3, and they're each put to work on a project that the writer has been working on. So if you are a writer and if you have a feature script that you want to actually get edited and produced, then apply for this opportunity. Again, these are very competitive programs. We get 50 applications, we select 5. So you really have to be bringing your best A game to these things. The animation, so Boss Project, which I spoke about, now this one is not related to production, it's related to business. So the Boss Project is geared towards the creative entrepreneurs, so executives who are running companies within the animation industry. We're targeting them. So these would be the studio managers, CEOs of animation studios, line producers, any of those people who are actually handling the business of that studio. We're going to be bringing them in, and instead of we don't need to teach people how to do your craft. You are creators. We're not here to teach you how to create. But at the same time, we realize that in many cases you want to animate, and so you start a company and you start animating, but you don't know how to run a business. So this is the type of program that's going to teach you how to run a business as opposed to how to do the creative craft of animation. From an industry and investment promotion perspective, as I'd mentioned, we do delegations for market attendance. Every year we will be attending TIFF or one other large international festival. We've now attended TIFF 2 years in a row. And again, this is one of those, the national delegations are one where if you are working in the industry at a level where attending a national delegation is going to be of use to you, then it's important for you to invest in yourself. We negotiate discounts on the registration fees, on hotels where we can. We do group travel arrangements. We, get everyone together. We move as a team. We get jackets, So it really is, if you have something that you're ready to workshop or ready to be internationally exposed to, then invest in yourselves and make sure that you sign up for these types of opportunities. It's not something that we can pay for, but, we do try to negotiate discounts where we can, and then if you have to self-fund to attend the national delegations. The investment project facilitations now, these are studio builds. It's actually, we have two terminologies that we use, is the physical build and the digital build. So the physical build will be studios. So I think many of you might be familiar, there was a St. Thomas project, Goodyear factory, they had wanted to invest in building a studio there. It hasn't quite gone in the direction that they had originally intended, but we do have several other entities that have expressed an interest in setting up studio spaces in Jamaica. These are international companies. They're already fully funded. They want to come and set up shop here. They want to be able to hire people here. So Jampro works with those companies to facilitate that's the physical build. On the digital build, now this is the work that we do with some of the platforms. So if you are a local business that is starting a platform or you're trying to start a platform, then please come and talk to us. We can help to guide you. We can help. We don't own the rights to any content, so it's not that we can say, okay, well, here you have a platform, we're going to connect you with the rights holders, or we're going to give you the rights to show this work. But what we can do is help you to design your business so that it will offer certain types of best practices, and it will be globally competitive, because at the same time, we want to be able to represent content creators and make sure that if there is a local business that is offering its services up as a platform, then we want to make sure that as filmmakers, you're not getting a bad deal from a local company. So we actually vet the platforms, and we talk to the platforms about what your contracts should look like, what your different revenue models might look like. So we actually have some of that as a consultation service. It's not something that we sign on. We're not your partner in terms of signing on to your company and being a part of your board or anything like that. But come and have a meeting with us. We'll do a first meeting, an initial orientation, talk to you about the business, and help you to get along your way. Production facilitation. So international productions, everything that is an international production that's shooting in the country is required to come through the Film Commission to do a permit registration. I think Tristan might have spoken about that on day one. So, but this is also, there's a key stumbling block here. The reason that we're able to enforce this is that when a production comes into the island, if they don't have that registration document that is signed by the Film Commission, they get detained at the airport. So that's why they end up being required to do it, because they know that they will get detained at the airport if they cannot show that they've done this. Whereas if you are here locally, you're filming on the ground, you're not getting detained. You're gonna, call your friend, you're gonna pick up your camera, you're gonna go down the road, and you're gonna shoot something on the street corner. That's how we do. But at the same time, there is significant value with registering your local project with the Film Commission. On the one hand, we get so many calls from international festivals that say, hey, I'm looking for Jamaican content that is a short, I want it to deal with this type of topic, do you have any recommendations? If you're not registering your content with the Film Commission, then we cannot recommend you. So it's going to become increasingly important for you to actually, it's an online form, you can fill it out and we tag it, we collate that information, and then at least that way when international film festivals or if, a consular office, the Jamaican High Commission in China, for example, contacts me once a year and says they're looking for something to do a creative exchange with a cultural exchange, what can I recommend to them that was shot that year? at this point, we're just going anecdotally. We're going based on what we know was done, or what the trade association says, hey, I remember this, or if someone tells me. But it's not structured, it's ad hoc. And we can't really grow if we're doing anything ad hoc. So we need to start having local productions register with the Film Commission so that we can properly represent you. At present, there is a cost to register because it's an international registration. I am working on having that changed. So the US fee is $300 to register an international project, but we're in the process now of changing the licensing structure. The goal is to have local productions register for free. And in fact, the other part of the goal, and I'm giving you a little bit of insider information right now, this has not actually been discussed, but the idea behind licensing, and this is how it works in other countries, is that the fees that are paid for the project to be licensed, so if an international project is coming in, whatever licensing fee that they are paying to the Film Commission, that amount goes into a fund which is then made available to develop local content. That is standard practice everywhere else in the world, and it is something that we're working on changing right now, because we need to have those types of benefits as well. I wasn't finished. All right, so film registration, I spoke about. There's another benefit of having your projects, local projects, registered with the Film Commission, and this is that once we get a sense of what you are doing, we are better able to advocate and to say that this is the true economic impact of the local industry. Right now, we have no data that says, you all, when you're producing something, you know what your budget is. You know that, you're shooting a music video, it's going to cost you $600,000 or whatever it might cost you. You know these things. You know how much you're paying for crew. You know how much you're paying for cast. You know how much you're paying for renting equipment. All of these things. But if that is not being recorded and tracked, and if that information does not get fed into the machinery, because the machinery is that in February of every year, Jamper is required to report to the PIOJ, to the Planning Institute of Jamaica, and that information goes into the ESSJ, which is the Economic and Social Statistical Survey of Jamaica. This is what shows the economic impact of any sector. And right now we are vastly underreporting the economic impact. And this is why when we go to the table, when I have to go and sit and talk to a minister or talk to a chairman of a board, they look at me and they laugh, because they're like, but the film industry, it's a hobby. You guys aren't doing any money. You're not making any money. You're not spending any money. And that's because we're not reporting any money. But we all know the value. We all know how much is being put into this industry. We all know how much you are all putting into it. But if that information does not come back through the system, then we have less to work with in terms of advocacy, in terms of trying to advocate for funding and for policy changes. Yes, absolutely. For the two reasons that I just said a while ago. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It's important that all local productions register with the Film Commission, even if it is done through GATFest. And I mean, one of the conversations that we might have with GATFest is that those registrations can be done as a bulk upload. So it might not need to necessarily be that you as an individual is, doing all of the paperwork. Maybe that's a conversation that can be had. But it is crucial that we start actually registering local productions instead of saying, oh, I don't want the government know my business, So that's not helping us. It's not helping any of us by imagining that you don't want the government to know your business. Less so. I mean, we don't have any. There's no alignment or no connection there at the moment. I mean, it is going to be important to be able to eventually start tracking whether or not digital monetization is happening. But at present, the goal that we do have is to make sure that we're actually able to track from a production perspective first. Yeah, I'm hoping that you know, it is a goal that we want to be able to get towards, to being able to look at the digital tracking. Now, it's that we can do that in the music industry because the systems are in place in the music industry to do that. There's things like CD Baby and SoundScan and the IFPI report, and so there are mechanisms in place to track digital monetization for music, particularly because music is much more digitally downloaded per unit as opposed to film, which is streamed. So there are some hurdles from the digital system, some of the digital economy that we are not able to really address, but excellent question. All right, you guys know about bond waivers and the Carnet system. I think we spoke about that with the ministry, productive input relief, and then access to public spaces. This is a goal. We want to be able to work more closely with places like the UDC or the local parish councils to make sure that anyone who is filming in a public space has smoother, more streamlined access to that public space. Cannot guarantee that it will be without a cost because, as you know, these venues do depend on these costs in order to operate, to keep them clean, to make sure that they're functioning so they're nice and pretty when you get there. But at the same time, we are aiming towards a much more streamlined process. And I have to say that we recently concluded in December, we had a stakeholders consultation, which we did with the Canadian Executive Services Organization. And what this was is we actually went to all of the different public sector entities and stakeholders to identify how are we overlapping, how are we not overlapping, and we're going to be streamlining that process as well in the coming time. All right. All right. So my mandate, and I put this here because of my background in the film industry. There's certain things that I think are really important, and that within my tenure, I want to ensure that we address. Spoke about incentives. We spoke about the co-production treaty, and then obviously the film fund. The film fund is one of the key priorities that I plan to address it. I plan to make sure that before I leave here, this is something that is well on its way. We can skip this, the competitive environment. Right, so this is actually the stuff that the research and the framework that currently exists. We have the National Export Strategy, the Medium-Term Framework, Services Sector Strategy, and the Film and Animation Sector and Policy, and of course the business plan. So these are some of the public sector documents that guide the work that we're doing. And I put this here because I don't want any of you to think that what we're doing in the Film Commission is ad hoc, or we do it because we're moving down this path, or we're choosing that, or it's not arbitrary. Everything that we've chosen to do and everything that we prioritize is coming out of a larger national mandate and feeding up into larger national development goals. So yeah, this is just some of the other things that we spoke about already, some of the areas that we plan to address, and that things that are in the way, and yeah. Yes. I'm gonna bring up another there's some more information that I do want to share with you. So while Stefan's bringing that up, I'll take some questions in the meantime. Okay. I think. That kind of stuff it's not, I mean, the association does not function as a union in the same way, but they do have intentions, and a part of the agenda for them as well is to function in that way, to bring together a lot of the labor market issues that we are facing, and so they will be addressing some of those things.
Join your association.
Just a quick question. I've never checked this, but I've always heard that YouTube will not pay. Yeah, I've always heard that YouTube does not pay in Jamaica. Is that true?
No. I'm not aware of that. I'm not sure.
Does anybody have that That
YouTube doesn't pay
We get
in Jamaica?
likes on YouTube if we're ready. Huh?
Yeah, I haven't. Oh, I wonder if it maybe just might be in terms of banking and deposits and stuff like that.
In terms of?
In terms of banking, would it be that maybe you need to have a US account for it to be deposited to or something like that? Okay.
Considering that you don't know, I wonder if.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
No,
I'm
but
not
the question,
really
I don't know,
familiar with
Farmer, if that person didn't send the video up to their friend in New York to put it on the thing, and that because I know several places where we're talking 150,000 hits, so each for 5, 6 different videos and things that there's no money. Right, but if we all are told we just don't get money, we don't register it. You know what I mean? Huh? In New York, exactly. Right, that's the go around I know. But I don't know. Is there any way to really find that out and make that?
I don't know, and I mean that would be
because that would be a really good thing to tell the people here that you can actually do this.
Yeah.
And because you're all telling us to use these ways, but it's a mystery and the methodology for doing that. Because we have music videos,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I happen to know a Beanie Man music video that went 175,000 in a week, like the first days. And it was put on the director's channel.
Mm-hmm.
And I have since then followed the whole of that channel. And that channel regularly gets 100,000 a month. Because they have not just Beanie Man, but they have Cecile and the whole of those. He works with Dexter.
Yeah.
He used to work with the late Dexter, right, the editor. And he kept putting them on his channel. And we noticed the numbers. I even wrote a little article called If Clicks Could Pay. Because we realized there's absolutely zinc coming around it. And we were told then, no, YouTube does not respect Jamaican whatever.
Yeah,
it would be something
probably would be just a geo-blocking issue, which, I mean, as you can imagine, that wouldn't be a film commission responsibility. It's just to kind of know
it wouldn't be
how
a
to get
government's
around it.
responsibility to
No.
stand up for our rights. So how could we?
I am not going up against YouTube. So,
It's not up against.
I mean, this is a geo-blocking issue, so it wouldn't necessarily be a film. It's not, I don't imagine that it is Jamaica specific. I think it is probably just geo-blocking based on what YouTube's corporate policies are.
It could be the Caribbean, of which we need
Yeah.
come therefore to say we make X amount of million people.
Yeah, but I mean, I think definitely, because clearly people are going around it, but it doesn't seem like it would be the most intuitive way to go about it. But no, I'm not really familiar
And
with
there
that
are
at
out of
all.
it have come actually a few services
Mhm.
that have actually, said that that's what we will provide.
Right. Well, that's the thing. Like aggregators do that. I mean, I know aggregators are more prominent in the music industry than they are in doing uploads, like bulk uploads to all of the different platforms for film, for audiovisual content. But the model, I guess, does exist in that way. I'm not very familiar with it though.
Gotcha. Thank you.
All right. I am back up to some of the stuff that I wanted to show you. You had a question you wanted to ask now?
All right. What I was wondering about is earlier you spoke to it, but I wasn't very clear on what you were saying. As it pertains to providing content to, say, flow and demand, a lot of times we as producers have no idea of the value of that content. So when we go to the negotiating table, literally they can tell us anything. So are we able to find out, like, on average, what the marketplace, because if you ask them, they won't tell you.
They won't tell you. I think one of the ways around that is through your associations as well, because there are people who do have these deals, and the thing is that it's personal, it's private information. So it would be up to people who are currently negotiating in deals that would say, all right, well, there's a way to collectively bargain towards it as opposed to going individually. We have had conversations with Flow and Digicel, and more recently as well with TVJ and with Palace Amusement. And the goal, I mean, and I don't know if this is necessary, it will be helpful if it does come on board, but it does have to take a collective effort as opposed to, us saying we're going to do this alone. But the goal would be to have some kind of collective bargaining where we can say that if all of the local content that, certain criteria that it would have to meet and blah, 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 but this is the standard deal that would be made available to Caribbean content or to local content. So there's definitely room for growth there as well. All right, I wanted to just touch a little bit, and I know we're running late, so thank you for staying over time. We just wanted to touch a little bit on some of the imperatives and some of the things that we are planning for the next 3 years. So we do 3 years strategic planning. We did 2017. Our planning year is from April to March, so April 1st to March 31st. And so we'd now be going into year 2 of the second of the 3-year planning. There are 3 major imperatives that the Film Commission is going to be pursuing. Obviously, creating more jobs for Jamaicans who are working in the screen-based industries. Now, part of it is we do this through the facilitation of production, now whether that is local production or international production, and then also trying to outsource. So with animation, there's quite a bit of outsourcing opportunities that happen there. Pursuing infrastructure projects, so this is what I had mentioned about the studio builds as well, and then pursuing digital opportunities. So as I mentioned, we've been speaking to platforms to try and see how we can streamline that process and how we can ensure that the business side of it is win-win for everybody. The idea around creating jobs is an interesting one, because right now we track jobs based on what comes into us through film registrations. So I know people are out there working. We know people are working, and we know you're working every day. But we're not able to report on those jobs being created if you're not actually submitting that information. The other part of it too is that there's a mechanism, there's 2 sort of ways beyond. One is to identify opportunities that will create jobs, and then the other is to ensure that we are actually capturing additional data of jobs that have already been created but just aren't recorded or aren't tracked anywhere. So that's 2 of the ways that we're going to go about doing that. Stimulating financing and routes to market. Now, commercially viable content is a very key thing, because this is one of the factors. We still are not where we need to be in terms of our production. We still are not. The production quality still has a lot of work to go, and that is a reality. And we can't fool ourselves into thinking that, I've produced something and it's great. Yeah, it's great, but it needs to be better. So let's work on that. We need to work on that. So one of the things that we're doing is, obviously I mentioned implementing the Jamaica Film Fund and working on other partner financing options. I'm not sure if you guys are aware that there is actually a financing seminar that's going to be taking place in Kingston on Wednesday. So this is with the Development Bank of Jamaica, with MCJES, Jamper is involved, JIPO is involved. So this seminar, it's another all-day seminar, and they're giving you lunch. Lunch is provided too, so come down and it's free. Well, we're not the event organizer, so I'm not sure what their streaming plans are. We're going to be there speaking as well, but they are going to be speaking about access to financing, and they're also going to be talking about pension planning and estate planning, because I think this is a key thing that people who are in the creative sector are not really thinking about. You earn your living, and then our earnings are so sporadic and they're so uncharted that we're not planning for the future with those earnings, and then you end up having, and this happens in the music industry all the time, we have artists who during their life are top of their game, and then their time has come for them and there's no money to bury them. This has been happening to many of our musicians and many of our artists. I know you've seen it. It's been in the news a lot with many of our older artists, that a lot of that estate planning has not been done at all, and we need to curb it now. We need to start thinking about planning for the future. So that's happening on Wednesday at Terra Nova in Kingston. Obviously, increasing the quantity and quality of local content. I mentioned 3 of our signature programs already. So that's Jafta Propeller, Making Development Work, and the Boss Project. And so this is what we're doing in order to increase the quality by actually going through this development process before content is produced, and then also increasing the quantity by ensuring that we are creating a trajectory. So we now have a catalog of 15 short films. Since over the past 3 years, we now have a catalog of 15 short films that we can say have been vetted, produced, and are ready to be sold. So that's what we're doing there. Building deeper relationships. Part of the mission of building the Film Fund means that the Film Commission will be engaging and embarking on greater connectivity with investors, both international and local. So one of the things that we do, which I'm thinking most people might not even really be aware of, is we do these things called investor go-sees. You guys watch Next Top Model, America's Next Top Model? You know how they have the designer go-sees, so they take the models to go see the designer. We take creative businesses to go see investors. Now, obviously, there's due diligence. We can't take everybody to go and see the investor. So if you come to us and your business is sound and you are ready, so after we've done the due diligence, we've vetted your project, we've talked about your business plans, we've talked about what seed capital you might have, we've talked about what collateral you're bringing to the table, the revenue streams, the opportunity for investment, what that might look like. After we've gone through all of that with you, if you meet those criteria, then we will take you to go see investors. As long as and so part of that is ensuring that the relationship with the investors is sound, and also ensuring that the product and what you are bringing to the table is sound, because you only get one chance with an investor. And when we are bringing companies to go and see investors, if we're not bringing the top of top companies, then eventually the investors are not going to want to talk to us anymore either. So we're all in this boat together, but we do have the Investor Go See initiative that we do make available to companies that are ready to see investors. I spoke about film licensing and amending that so that there is going to be a local and an international component to it. I spoke about the guide to filming, and then of course one thing that is key for us always is the collaboration with industry associations and our sector partners. We did this major stakeholder consultation with CASO last year. We are ongoing with our relationship with the industry associations and making sure that we are working in tandem to move the industry forward. And then of course we have very strong partnerships with our ministries and other MDAs, with all of our partners there who you saw come out over the past 2 days to speak to you about how they function and how you need to, or how you can interface with them. And then of course we also want to tap into the diaspora, to our international partners. The Film Commission is a member of the Association of Film Commissioners International, so we are a registered body within the larger group of film commissions globally. And so we are working with all of these different stakeholders and these different entities to help to make those things happen. Now, I've spoken for over an hour. And so I think you guys can see the full scope of everything that is happening behind the scenes. Even if you're not aware of all of these things that are happening, this is what is happening. This is what is being done by your film commission, and this is being done by the 3 people who you've seen today running around this room. Now, Stefan is right here, Stefan Chang. I don't know if Tiffany and Tristan, they might have stepped outside, but Tristan is the Senior Sales and Promotions Officer in the Film Commission, essentially my right hand, and Tiffany Lindo and Stefan Chang are our consulting officers. So that is all of this work, everything that it has taken me an hour to tell you about, is being done by these 3 people. So, that's it, and I'll take some questions if there are any.
We probably ran out of questions. I don't know if we ran out of questions, but and I'm not really nominated to do this. And I'm sorry we don't have a bouquet of flowers to present to you, but I would really like to give our heartfelt thanks for this. Although we're not many in number, we really would like to say that who came, we're very interested, we're well informed. Please don't give up on us.
Not
We
at
will
all.
try our best to get better numbers in here because every time you come, we find you have more and more information to give us. Yeah? But
Thank you.
just generally, thank you very much for what you, on behalf of, assume the role. I guess I'm the landlord. Thank you very, very much for the presentation, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Yeah?
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So is Conrad, you gonna close? You giving us vote of thanks and closing? Or we close? Yeah, we close. It's after 5 o'clock. We lock up. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here.